Good morning and welcome to the Public Service Commission of South Carolina. It is Tuesday, January 17th, 9:36 a.m., and we are here in docket number 2022-254E, which pertains to the application of Duke Energy Progress, LLC, for an increase in electric rates, adjustments in electric rate schedules and tariffs, and requests for an accounting order. This is, we resumed this hearing. We started it last Monday and recessed until today. Let's take a roll call of commissioners. With us virtually, we have Commissioner Irvin. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioner Justin Williams, Vice Chair Powers, Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Carol Lee Williams, Commissioner Caston, and Chair Belser. We've got a lot of parties here, and we need to take appearances from the parties. Who's representing Duke Energy Progress today?
Good morning, Chair Belser, Vice Chair Powers, members of the Commission. Again, my name is Kamal Robinson, appearing on behalf of Duke Energy Progress, LLC. With me today are Frank Ellerby, Ashley Cooper, Kiran Mehta, and Brandon Marzo. In addition, Chair Belser just wanted to also shout out to Miss Monica Smith, as well as Miss Allison Williams. They will be assisting with passing out copies of various testimony summaries and other exhibits throughout the course of the proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Interveners, we have South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners Roger Hall and Carrie Gruby-Leibarker on behalf of the department.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Federal executive agencies.
Yes, good morning. This is Captain Marcus Duffy appearing on behalf of federal executive agencies.
Thank you, Captain Duffy. South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Charlie Terani. I'm here for the South Carolina Small Business Chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Tarini. Nucor Steel, South Carolina.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Rob Smith and Mike Levanga on behalf of Nucor Steel, South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. South Carolina Coastal Conservation League, Southern Alliance for Clean Energy and Vote Solar.
Good morning, Chair Belser. This is Kate Mixon and Emma Clancy on behalf of SACE, CCL, and Vote Solar.
Thank you, Ms. Mixon. Sierra Club.
Good morning, Chair Belser. My name is Justin Smolowski.
Madam Chair.
On behalf of Sierra Club, and I'm joined by Bob Guile virtually.
Thank you, Mr. Somolowski. Mr. Guile, I think you spoke up.
I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Somolowski was there. Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Guile. Walmart Incorporated.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Eaton, and I'm appearing on behalf of Walmart, Inc. in this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton. South Carolina Energy Users Committee.
Madam Chair, I'm Scott Elliott. I'm here for the energy users this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ben Muschin on behalf of ORS. With me today is Ms. Donna Rainey and Ms. Nicole Given. In addition, our Executive Director, Ms. Nanette Edwards, is here with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Muschin. Let's see, where do we go now? Mr. Robinson?
Thank you, Chair Belser. I assume this thing is on?
Yes,
All right.
sir. We can hear you. Thank you.
All right. Again, good morning, Chair Belser, members of the Commission. As the Commission is aware, last week, Thursday, all the parties filed a proposed comprehensive settlement agreement in this proceeding. At this time, the company moves to mark that proposed comprehensive settlement agreement for identification and its five attachments, which encompasses, again, all parties before this commission and covers all issues in this proceeding. And we therefore move it, in addition to marked for identification, we also move it into the record as the next hearing exhibit. I do have some brief remarks regarding the settlement if and when it pleases the commission as well, Chair Belser. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson, we will mark on the settlement agreement with attachments as hearing exhibit number 6 and receive that document into the evidence of this case. And before I forget, counsel, you may speak from wherever you're most comfortable. If you want to remain seated, just make sure I can find you in the crowd. And you're welcome to use the mic at your table. If you're more comfortable standing, and you can get to a podium, feel free to do so. You need to feel comfortable in this proceeding, so we want to accommodate you in those regards. Mr. Robinson, you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair Belzer. Chair Belzer, members of the Commission, the Comprehensive Settlement Agreement represents the culmination of extensive negotiations with all parties in this docket and covers all issues presented in this proceeding for this Commission's consideration. I would like to personally, as well as on behalf of the company, thank all of the parties for their collaboration and compromise, particularly during the holiday season, to achieve this result. This case was complex, and so I note that this comprehensive settlement comes only after a full and detailed exploration by all the parties of the contents of the company's application, resulting in dozens of witnesses, voluminous amounts of testimony, thousands of data requests, and several motions that were filed. While I cannot discuss the details of the negotiations, I can say that it is with this extremely well-informed view by all parties that we decided to engage with each other to evaluate whether this comprehensive settlement agreement and resolution could occur, which we were able to achieve. Accordingly, the company views this comprehensive settlement agreement as a complete package representing a fair and reasonable outcome, fully resolving all issues in this proceeding, resulting in just and reasonable rates, and is in the public interest. I will not go through the details of the settlement today. I have Mr. Mike Callahan, Rachel Elliott, and Teresa Reed, who will explain to you why the company believes that is the case. However, and accordingly, we request that the Commission approve the comprehensive settlement agreement in its entirety. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I know we have a lot of housekeeping matters, but you've kind of given an introduction. Is there any other party that wishes to make an introductory statement at this time? Okay, hearing none. I believe that the settlement agreement agrees to, or has a provision where pre-filed testimony and exhibits of most of the witnesses will be stipulated into the record.
That is correct, Chair Belzer.
We have a few witnesses that are appearing either virtually or in person today to present settlement testimony. Do y'all propose to put in, will they introduce and support, put in their direct or rebuttal or their pre-filed testimonies when they're live, or are you going to do that as a package at the beginning?
Chair Belzer, obviously I'm happy to do what the Commission requests or prefers, but we're prepared to be able to move in all of the pre-filed testimony here today at one juncture, and then have our witnesses be able to speak to, of course, in person, the live hearing testimony.
I would suggest that the settlement testimonies be put in live. If you want to do pre-filed direct, rebuttal, or corrected versions, that's fine, but is that meet with the approval of the parties that settlement witnesses will put in their settlement testimony?
No issues for me, Chair Belzer. I'm fine with that.
All right, this is going to take a few minutes, so we need to go one by one because we will need to mark pre-filed exhibits as hearing exhibits. So, and if we are missing any verifications, please note that so that we can hold late filed exhibit for verifications.
Thank you, Chair Belzer. I'm ready whenever you all are.
We're ready.
Okay, let's begin with Mr. Mike Callahan.
Okay.
Mr. Callahan filed direct testimony consisting of 18 pages, as well as rebuttal testimony consisting of 25 pages.
Mr. Callahan's direct, and we have his stipulation, verification. Is that correct?
Chair Belzer, yes, we did file it. We also have actually paper copies if the Commission requests it.
Let's do this. When we get to the end, we'll put all verifications as one hearing exhibit to hand up to the court reporter.
Thank you, Chair Belzer.
All right. No exhibits for Mr. Callahan.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Callahan's direct and rebuttal pre-filed testimonies will be entered into the records if given orally from the stand.
Okay. Moving on to Ms. Jessica Bednarczyk. Ms. Bednarczyk had direct testimony consisting of 83 pages. She also had rebuttal testimony consisting of 42 pages and 3 exhibits.
Ms. Bednarczyk's direct and rebuttal testimonies will be entered into the records if given from the stand.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Jonathan Bird.
Exhibits.
I'm sorry. Yes, we
Thank
have
you.
3 exhibits for Bednarczyk.
Ms. Bednarsik's, is that direct?
That's that is rebuttal.
Rebuttal exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 7 and entered into the record.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Jonathan Byrd. Mr. Byrd had direct testimony consisting of 23 pages and 7 exhibits. He also had rebuttal testimony consisting of 18 pages.
Mr. Byrd's direct and rebuttal testimonies will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Byrd's direct exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 8 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Jim Coyne. Mr. Coyne had rebuttal testimony consisting of 11 pages and 2 exhibits.
Mr. Coyne's rebuttal testimony will be entered into the record as given from the stand. Mr. Coyne's rebuttal exhibits, and where there's more than one exhibit for all of these witnesses, it'll be a composite exhibit. Let's just get that out of the way. Composite exhibit, hearing marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 9 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. Miss Rachel Elliott is next. She's got a number of file testimony here. So direct testimony consisting of 44 pages, as well as 4 exhibits. She also files supplemental direct testimony consisting of 10 pages and 4 exhibits. She also has second supplemental direct testimony consisting of 5 pages. And she had rebuttal testimony consisting of 31 pages and 6 exhibits.
Ms. Elliott's direct, supplemental direct, second supplemental direct, and rebuttal testimonies will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. Ms. Elliott's 4 direct exhibits, 4 supplemental exhibits, and 6 rebuttal exhibits.
6 rebuttal, that's correct.
6 rebuttal exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 10 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Stephen Fetter. Mr. Fetter had direct testimony consisting of 26 pages and 1 exhibit, as well as rebuttal testimony consisting of 11 pages.
Mr. Fetter's direct and rebuttal testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Fetter's direct exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 11 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Brent Guyton. Mr. Guyton had direct testimony consisting of 31 pages and 8 exhibits, as well as rebuttal testimony consisting of 27 pages and 5 exhibits.
Mr. Guyton's direct and rebuttal testimonies will be entered into the record as if given from the stand. Mr. Guyton's 8 direct exhibits and 5 rebuttals exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 12 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you, Chair Belzer. Next is Ms. Janice Hager. Ms. Hager had direct testimony consisting of 27 pages and 3 exhibits, as well as rebuttal testimony consisting of 15 pages.
Ms. Hager's direct and rebuttal testimony will be entered into the record as if given from the stand, and her 3 direct exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 13 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Larry Hatcher. Mr. Hatcher had direct testimony consisting of 30 pages.
Mr. Hatcher's direct testimony will be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Retha Hunsaker. Ms. Hunsaker had direct testimony consisting of 15 pages.
Ms. Hunsaker's direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given from the stand.
Thank you, Chair Belzer. Next is Mr. Dan Malley. Mr. Malley had direct testimony consisting of 22 pages and 1 exhibit.
Mr. Malley's direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given from the stand. Mr. Malley's exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 14 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. Next is Dr. Roger Morin. Dr. Morin had direct testimony consisting of 73 pages, 2 appendices, and 9 exhibits. And he had rebuttal testimony consisting of 99 pages, 4 rebuttal exhibits, as well as part of his rebuttal testimony, he also updated his exhibits 2 through 9. And so we would move those as well.
This is Dr. Morin, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Morin's direct and rebuttal testimonies will be entered into the record as if given from the stand. Dr. Morin's exhibits, direct exhibits, the appendices and the 9 exhibits, and the rebuttal exhibits and updated exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 15 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Carl Newland. Mr. Newland had direct testimony consisting of 16 pages. He also had rebuttal testimony consisting of 27 pages and 5 exhibits.
Mr. Newland's direct and rebuttal testimonies will be entered into the record as given from the stand. Mr. Newland's rebuttal exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 16 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Tom Ray. Mr. Ray had direct testimony consisting of 23 pages and rebuttal testimony consisting of 11 pages.
Mr. Ray's direct and rebuttal testimonies will be entered into the record as given from the stand.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Teresa Reed. Ms. Reed had direct testimony consisting of 42 pages as well as 8 exhibits. She also had an errata to direct testimony filed September 23rd, 2022. And she also had rebuttal testimony consisting of 11 pages.
Do we need to put the, I know that y'all filed corrected direct. Do we need to, can we just put in the corrected direct? That's what's listed in the settlement agreement.
Yes, thank you, Chair Belzer. That is correct. So the company would revise its request and move in the corrected direct testimony that was filed on September 23rd.
All right. Ms. Reed's corrected direct testimony and rebuttal testimony will be entered into the record as if given from the stand.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Sean Riley. Mr. Riley had direct testimony consisting of 32 pages and 1 exhibit, as well as rebuttal testimony consisting of 9 pages.
Mr. Riley's direct and rebuttal testimonies will be entered into the record as if given from the stand. Mr. Riley's direct exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 17 and received into the evidence of this case.
Chair Belzer, just for clarity purposes, read exhibits.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Reed was 17, is that right?
That's right.
I don't know that I moved in Reed's. Okay.
Like me to turn back to Reed and restate?
Reed's exhibits. Yes. If you would restate Ms. Reed's.
Happy to. Ms. Reed's direct testimony consisting of 42 pages and 8 exhibits. Excuse me, the corrected direct testimony consisting of 42 pages and 8 exhibits. Rebuttal testimony consisting of 11 pages as well. So the exhibits are related to her corrected direct testimony.
Okay. Ms. Reed's direct exhibits attached to her corrected direct testimony will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 17 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank
Now,
you.
Mr. Riley's direct exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 18 and received into the evidence of the case. And my
Thank you.
apologies, but thank you for the correction.
No worries, thank you. All right, Mr. Rokoff as well is next, Mr. Mark Rokoff. Direct testimony consisting of 4 pages and 2 exhibits, and rebuttal testimony consisting of 23 pages and 1 exhibit.
Mr. Rokoff's Direct and rebuttal testimonies will be received into the record as if given from the stand. Mr. Rokoff's direct and rebuttal exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 19 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Kim Smith. Ms. Smith's rebuttal testimony consisting of 17 pages.
Ms. Smith's rebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
That's correct. And just to be very clear, Ms. Smith had also previously filed supplemental rebuttal testimony. We will not be moving that in. Just
Thank
for
you.
clarity.
That's why I hesitated. Then, thank you very much. Just the rebuttal testimony is in.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Next is Mr. John Spanos. Mr. Spanos has direct testimony consisting of 24 pages, 1 appendix, and 5 exhibits, as well as rebuttal testimony consisting of 46 pages.
Mr. Spanos' direct and rebuttal testimonies will be read into the record as if given from the stand. Mr. Spanos' appendix and direct exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 21 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Nicholas Sparrows. Mr. Sparrows had direct testimony consisting of 10 pages and 1 exhibit.
Mr. Spiros' direct (20) wasn't Smith,
20 was Miss Smith, I believe.
but there was no exhibit.
No exhibits. She had no
Okay,
exhibits.
thank you. Madam Court Reporter, I apologize. Can we go back? All right. 20 will be Spanos's, Mr. Spanos's exhibits, appendix and exhibits. 21 will be Spanos's exhibits. Am I on?
Appendix and exhibits.
Boy, I'm messing this up. I'm sorry.
No worries. It's a lot of testimony, I know.
Okay. Who are we on? Tell me again.
So we were focused on Mr. Sparrows next. So Smith, I think we were at 20. Spanos is
No. Spanos is 20.
20. Sparrows is 21. 20. Sparrows is 21. 1 exhibit to his direct testimony.
I'm just not finding him on my list. Hold on a minute. Thank you. Whoever said 17, thank you. Sparrows. And tell me his exhibit again.
Yes, he had 1 exhibit to his direct testimony.
1. Mr. Sparrows' exhibit will be marked for identification as 21 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Jacob Stewart. Mr. Stewart had direct testimony consisting of 26 pages and 2 exhibits. And he also had rebuttal testimony consisting of 23 pages and 1 exhibit.
Mr. Stewart's direct and rebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Stewart's exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 22 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. Next is Miss Julie Turner. Ms. Turner had direct testimony consisting of 17 pages, as well as rebuttal testimony consisting of 16 pages and 2 exhibits.
Ms. Turner's direct and rebuttal testimonies will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Ms. Turner's exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 23 and received into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. And last one, Chair Belzer, for the company, Ms. Marsha Williams. Ms. Williams had direct testimony consisting of 55 pages and 1 exhibit, as well as rebuttal testimony consisting of 29 pages.
Okay. Ms. Williams' direct and rebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Ms. Williams' exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 24 and admitted into the evidence of the case.
Thank you. And Chair Belzer, that is the last witness. We have the verifications for testimony if the chair would like that and to mark that for identification as well.
We'll do a composite exhibit for Duke Energy Progress witness verifications. That will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 25 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you.
And I'll get you to hand those up to the court reporter at the break. Just make sure she has them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience with me, Mr. Robinson.
Anytime, Chair Belzer.
South Carolina energy users, are you prepared to put your witnesses' testimony into the record?
Madam Chair, we would stipulate first the direct testimony of Kevin W. O'Donnell into the record. His direct testimony consisted of 14 pages of testimony, 1 appendix, and 1 exhibit.
Mr. O'Donnell's direct testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. O'Donnell's appendix and exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 26 and admitted into the record of this case.
Thank you. Also, we would stipulate into the record at this time Mr. O'Donnell's surrebuttal testimony, which consists of 13 pages and no exhibits.
Mr. O'Donnell's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I have verifications for both that I'll hand up to the court reporter at a break.
Mr. O'Donnell's verifications will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 27 and admitted into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Department of Consumer Affairs. I'm sorry, I'm going down the list in the settlement agreement, not the list that we have the parties. I hope that's not too confusing, but just so you know where I am.
No problem for me. And again, Roger Hall on behalf of the department. The department has 3 witnesses. Our first, Dr. David Dismukes, filed 48 pages of direct testimony, which also included an Appendix A and 512 pages of exhibits labeled DED1 through DED11. And he also filed 12 pages of surrebuttal testimony, which had no exhibits.
Dr. Dismukes, direct and surrebuttal testimonies will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Dr. Dismukes exhibits in Appendix A and exhibits DED1 through DED11 will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 28 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. Our next witness is Aaron Rothschild. He filed 125 pages of direct testimony, which included, attached to that were appendices A through G, and 18 pages of exhibits labeled ALR1 through ALR5. He also filed 18 pages of surrebuttal testimony that had no exhibits.
Mr. Rothschild's direct and you offered surrebuttal too?
Yes.
Okay. Direct and surrebuttal testimonies will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Rothschild's exhibits and appendices will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 29 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. Our last witness was Eric Borden, who filed 23 pages of direct testimony, which also had 4 pages of exhibits labeled EB1. He also filed 6 pages of surrebuttal testimony that had no exhibits.
Mr. Borden's direct and surrebuttal testimonies will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Borden's direct exhibits will be a composite exhibits marked for identification as hearing exhibit 30 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. And lastly, we did have 3 verifications, 1 for each witness, that have been filed in DMS, but we will provide them to the court reporter.
Okay. The verifications of the DCA witnesses, 3 verifications, will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 31 and received into the record of this case.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who do I have next? Captain Duffy, I believe I have the DoD federal executive agencies listed next.
Yes, Madam Chair. FBA would like to stipulate to Mr. Brian Andrews. He has a direct testimony that consists of 30 pages and has 1 appendix and 4 exhibits.
Mr. Andrews, direct. Are you putting in direct and sir rebuttal?
Yes, and Sir Roberto. That was going to be next on my side.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Mr. Andrews, direct testimony will be read into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Andrews' direct exhibits and appendix will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 32 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews also has Sir Roberto testimony that it consists of 7 pages and 1 exhibit.
Mr. Andrews' rebuttal testimony will be received into the record of this case as if given orally from the stand, and his rebuttal exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 33 and received into the evidence of this case.
Next, FDA would like to stipulate to Mr. Christopher Walters' direct testimony that consists of 70 pages, 1 appendix, and 17 exhibits.
Mr. Walters' direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. His appendix and exhibits attached to his direct testimony will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 34 and received into the record of this case.
FDA would also like to stipulate to Mr. Walters' Sir Roberto testimony that consists of 18 pages and no exhibits.
I'm sorry, could you repeat? I'm not sure I caught all that.
Yes, Madam Chair. FDA would also like to stipulate to Christopher Walters' Sir Roberto testimony that consists of 18 pages and no exhibits.
Mr. Walters' rebuttal testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Lastly, FDA would like to stipulate to Mr. Michael Gorman's direct testimony that consists of 27 pages, 1 appendix, and 2 exhibits.
Mr. Gorman's direct testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Gorman's appendix and 2 exhibits with his direct testimony will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 35 and received into the evidence of this case.
And FDA would also like to stipulate to Mr. Gorman's Sir Roberto testimony that consists of 19 pages and 1 exhibit.
Mr. Gorman's rebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand, and Mr. Gorman's rebuttal exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 36 and received into the evidence of this case.
And we've also filed our verifications electronically, Madam Chair, and we've also FedExed hard copy to the Commission.
Thank you. We will hold hearing exhibit number 37. Well, the verifications will be hearing exhibit 37, which is marked for identification and received into the record of this case. Has that got us covered?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Captain Duffy. South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce.
Madam Chair, we would like to enter into the record the direct testimony of James Anthony Ward, 2 pages of which were pre-filed. In this case, without exhibits, and I'd request that the Commission allow us to hold the record open for a late filed exhibit for Mr. Ward's verification, please.
Mr. Ward's direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, and we will hold a late filed exhibit for the verification from Mr. Ward of his testimony. That is marked for identification and received into the evidence. Late filed exhibit 38.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I can talk faster than I can write. Newport, South Carolina.
Good morning, Chair Belzer and Commissioners. Nucor Steel has two witnesses we'd like to stipulate to. First is Jeffrey Pollock. He had pre-filed direct testimony consisting of 40 pages, including 3 appendices, Appendix A, B, and C. He also had pre-filed surrebuttal testimony consisting of 11 pages and no exhibits.
Mr. Pollock's direct and surrebuttal testimonies will be read into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Pollock's appendices attached as direct testimony will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit number 39 and received into the evidence of this case.
We'd also like to stipulate the testimony of Billy S. LeConte. Ms. LeConte had corrected pre-filed direct testimony consisting of 21 pages, including 2 appendices and 2 exhibits. She also had pre-filed surrebuttal testimony consisting of 4 pages.
Okay. We just need to put in the corrected direct, not direct and corrected direct. Is that correct?
Yes, we put in the initial testimony was filed on December 1st. We put in an errata on the 9th. The corrected direct testimony reflects the errata.
And then, but I'm just making sure we only have to put in the corrected direct. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Ms. LeConte's corrected direct and surrebuttal testimonies will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand, and her appendices and exhibits attached to corrected direct testimony will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 40 and received into the record of this case.
And Chair Belzer, we have filed the verifications for both of these witnesses, and we have the hard copies with us that we'll provide to the court reporter.
Verification for Nucor's 2 witnesses will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 41 and received into the record of this case. Thank you, Mr. Lavonga. Say CCL, vote Solar.
Thank you, Chair Belzer. Say CCL and Vote Solar have 2 witnesses. We did not file a verification for Mr. Jim Gravatt, but since he'll be appearing to present his settlement testimony, if it's amenable to the commission, we would propose to just move his testimony into the record at that.
That's
at that
fine.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our other witness is Dr. David Hill. He filed direct testimony consisting of 33 pages and 4 exhibits, and surrebuttal testimony consisting of 9 pages and no exhibits.
Dr. Hill's direct and surrebuttal testimonies will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Dr. Hill's direct exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 42 and received into the evidence of this case. And
Thank you, Chair Belzer. And we filed a verification for Dr. Hill yesterday and also have hard copies that we can provide.
Dr. Hill, the verification for Dr. Hill's testimony will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 43 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you.
Where are we? I think we're on Ms. Eaton now.
Good morning, Chair Belzer.
Good morning.
Walmart filed the pre-filed direct testimony for Lisa V. Perry, which consists of 30 pages and consists of 7 exhibits. And Walmart also filed the surrebuttal testimony for Ms. Perry, which consisted of 8 pages and 1 exhibit, LVP 8. So we would move all of those into the record. The testimony for stipulated and the exhibits into the record as the next hearing exhibit.
Ms. Perry's direct and surrebuttal testimonies will be entered into the record as if given from the stand. Ms. Perry's direct exhibits and surrebuttal exhibit will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 44 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you. We also filed the verification for Ms. Perry's testimony last Friday, and I've got an original verification to hand up as well.
Ms. Perry, the verification for Ms. Perry's testimony will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 45 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton. ORS?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicole Given on behalf of the Office of Regulatory Staff. Madam Chair, at the top, I wanted to note that we have not yet filed a witness verification for Dawn M. Hipp, but Ms. Hipp is appearing as a settlement witness in this matter, so we would propose to move her testimony into the record at that time if it pleases the Commission.
That's fine. We'll
Thank you,
handle it
Madam
that
Chair.
way. Just remember to remind me to let's do it.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Second, I'm going to move through ORS's direct testimony first and then proceed with their surrebuttal testimony, if that pleases the Commission.
Okay, so you're going to do witnesses direct and surrebuttal
Correct.
separate. Okay.
Organizationally, that just made more sense in my head.
Just add some more numbers.
First, we have the corrected direct testimony of Robert A. Lawyer, which consisted of 10 pages. And I'll note that was pre-filed on December 2nd, 2022.
Mr. Lawyer's corrected direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, we have the direct testimony of Elizabeth P. McGlone, which consisted of 28 pages and 2 exhibits.
Ms. McGlone's direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given from the stand, and her 2 direct exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 46 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, we have the direct testimony of Glenn A. Watkins, consisting of 43 pages and 6 exhibits.
Mr. Watkins' direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given from the stand. Mr. Watkins' direct exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 47 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of Anthony D. Brazino, consisting of 31 pages and 8 exhibits.
Mr. Brazino's direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Brazino's direct exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 48 and admitted into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of Courtney D. Radley, consisting of 13 pages and 1 exhibit.
I'm sorry. Would you repeat that, please?
Of course. The direct testimony of Courtney D. Radley, consisting of 13 pages and 1 exhibit.
Radley's direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. The direct exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 49 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of Anthony Sandinato, consisting of 8 pages and 1 exhibit, and I will note that Mr. Sandinato had both confidential and redacted versions of his testimony.
Mr. Sandinato's direct testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Sandinato's direct exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 50 and received into the evidence of this case, and the confidential version will be marked confidential and confidentiality maintained on that exhibit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, I'll move to the direct testimony of Daniel J. Rowland IV, consisting of 5 pages.
Mr. Rowland's direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of Brandon S. Bickley, consisting of 35 pages and 3 exhibits, and I'll note that Mr. Bickley's testimony also had confidential and redacted versions.
Mr. Bickley's direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Bickley's direct exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 51 and received into the evidence of this case with confidentiality maintained on this confidential exhibit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of Omari R. Thompson, consisting of 10 pages.
Mr. Thompson's direct testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of Daniel J. Whitliff, consisting of 64 pages and 21 exhibits.
Mr. Whitliff's direct testimony will be received into the record as if given from the stand. Mr. Whitliff's direct exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 52 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of Michael L. Seaman Wynn, consisting of 10 pages and 2 exhibits.
Mr. Seaman Wynn's direct testimony will be received into the evidence or into the record as if given orally from the stand, and his direct exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 53 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the corrected direct testimony of Donald Shane Hyatt, consisting of 6 pages and 2 exhibits. And I'll note that those were pre-filed on January 6, 2023.
Mr. Hyatt's direct testimony, is this corrected? The
Corrected.
Corrected
Yes, ma'am.
direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Hyatt's exhibits will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 54 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the corrected direct testimony of Aaron K. Rabin, consisting of 17 pages and 2 exhibits. And those were also pre-filed on January 6, 2023. And I'll note for the Commission that there are confidential and redacted versions of Mr. Rabin's corrected direct testimony as well.
Mr. Rabin's corrected direct testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Rabin's 2 exhibits with his attached to his direct testimony will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 55 and received into the evidence of this case. I believe there was a motion for confidentiality filed with the filing of that testimony.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
I'm not sure if it's on the agenda for this week or for next week. We have put it on the Commission's agenda for the business meeting so that the DMS will reflect a directive on that matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
But
Appreciate that
in the
clarity.
meantime, we will hold his exhibit as confidential until we can rule on that motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of Richard A. Baudino, consisting of 37 pages and 4 exhibits.
Mr. Baudino's direct testimony will be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Baudino's 4 exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 56 and received into the record of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the direct testimony of David J. Garrett, consisting of 42 pages, 3 appendices, and 27 exhibits.
Mr. Garrett's direct testimony will be received into the record of the case as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Baudino's 3 appendices, 27 exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 57 and received into the record of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then finally, for ORS's direct testimony, we have the direct testimony of Daniel F. Sullivan, consisting of 24 pages and 1 exhibit.
Mr. Sullivan's direct testimony will be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Sullivan's exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 58 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Turning now to ORS surrebuttal testimony. First is the surrebuttal testimony of Elizabeth P. McGlone, consisting of 9 pages.
Ms. McGlone's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Glenn A. Watkins, consisting of 10 pages.
Mr. Watkins, is that revised surrebuttal?
I believe that's just surrebuttal. I don't believe there was a revision to Mr. Watkins' surrebuttal testimony. There was.
I'm looking at that's what's in the settlement.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. The revised surrebuttal testimony of Glenn A. Watkins, consisting of 10 pages.
All right, Mr. Watkins' revised surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleagues. Revised surrebuttal testimony of Anthony D. Brazino, consisting of 14 pages and 7 exhibits.
Mr. Brazino's revised surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Brazino's exhibits attached to that testimony will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 59 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Courtney D. Radley, consisting of 8 pages.
Mr. Radley's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you. Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Anthony Sandinato, consisting of 10 pages.
Mr. Sandinato's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Brandon S. Bickley, consisting of 17 pages.
Mr. Bickley's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Omari R. Thompson, consisting of 5 pages.
Mr. Thompson's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Daniel J. Whitliff, consisting of 36 pages and 10 exhibits.
Mr. Whitliff's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Whitliff's surrebuttal exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 60 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the revised surrebuttal testimony of Michael L. Seaman Wynn, consisting of 6 pages and 1 exhibit. And I believe that is revised.
Mr. Seaman Wynn's revised surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand, and Mr. Seaman Wynn's revised surrebuttal exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 61 and admitted into the record of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Daniel F. Sullivan, consisting of 11 pages and 2 exhibits.
Mr. Sullivan's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Sullivan's surrebuttal exhibits will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit 62 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Aaron K. Rabin, consisting of 4 pages.
Mr. Rabin's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is the surrebuttal testimony of Richard A. Baudino, consisting of 16 pages and 1 exhibit.
Mr. Baudino's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Baudino's surrebuttal exhibit will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 63 and received into the evidence of this case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And finally, we have the surrebuttal testimony of David J. Garrett, consisting of 7 pages.
Mr. Garrett's surrebuttal testimony will be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And ORS has witness verifications. I believe those have been filed. We also have physical copies for a composite hearing exhibit. I will note, though, that we are still waiting on the physical copies for Richard Baudino and David Garrett. My understanding is those copies are en route to ORS, and perhaps we could hold a late filed exhibit for those.
That was Garrett and
Baudino.
ORS witness verifications that we have on hand today will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit 64 and received into the evidence of this case. We will hold a late filed hearing exhibit, which will be number 65 for the witness verifications for witnesses Garrett and Baudino.
Madam Chair, I also understand that we will need a late filed exhibit for ORS witness Whitliff
For verification?
for verification.
Okay,
Yes,
we will
ma'am.
include that in 65.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Have we covered all the stipulated testimony and exhibits? Thank you for your patience this morning, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate it. Yes, sir. Mr. Robinson.
Sure, thank you. Chair Belzer, I just wanted to clarify, my colleagues, many of them are much more organized than me. They made it very clear and reminded me that we do not have verifications for testimony for Mr. Michael Callahan, Larry Hatcher, Teresa Reed, and Rachel Elliott, and that's because they're here today to testify. So what I will do, if it pleases the commission, I will ask them the verifying questions when they take the stand. I just won't move them. I just won't move their testimony in again. I will just ask the questions and move in their settlement supporting testimony at the appropriate time.
Any objection to that process? That's fine, Mr. Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have one other preliminary matter whenever you're
All right,
ready, Chair.
sir.
Thanks. Chair Belzer, per provision B24D, which is on page 12 of the proposed comprehensive settlement agreement, the parties agreed it is appropriate to consolidate docket number 2022-281-E, which is a separate docket evaluating the company's request for the continuation of its grid improvement plan deferral, consolidated with this docket and resolve the matter in accordance with the proposed resolution contained in the comprehensive settlement agreement. Therefore, at this time, the company moves to consolidate the dockets.
Consolidate the docket for hearing? Is that, or consolidate them? How do you, define consolidate for me?
Sure, Chair Belzer. So per the proposed comprehensive settlement agreement, the resolution of that docket, the continuation of the deferral, per the proposed settlement, purports to resolve that matter. And so from the company's perspective, as well as the agreement itself, provided the commission does approve the settlement, that docket no longer needs to move forward or can be consolidated and addressed and resolved throughout this proceeding.
Okay, so if the settlement is approved, and we will address that docket in this order as well. Okay.
Yes, Chair Belzer.
Let's consolidate for hearing purposes here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Any other preliminaries from matters from any other parties? Okay, Mr. Robinson, you want to call your first witness?
Thank you, Chair Belzer. At this time, the company calls Mr. Michael Callahan and Mr. Larry Hatcher to the stand.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Hatcher, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Callahan, starting with you, would you please state your name and business address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Mike Callahan, and my business address is 40 West Broad Street, Greenville, South Carolina, 29601.
Thank you. And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Duke Energy as the South Carolina State President.
Okay. Mr. Callahan, on September 1st, 2022, did you cause to be pre-filed in docket number 2022-254-E direct testimony consisting of 18 pages?
Yes, I did.
And did you on December 15th, 2022, cause to be pre-filed in this docket rebuttal testimony consisting of 25 pages?
Yes, I did.
And did you on January 12th, 2023, cause to be pre-filed in this docket settlement supporting testimony consisting of 9 pages?
I did.
Mr. Callahan, do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct, rebuttal, or settlement supporting testimony?
No, I do not.
And if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Belzer, at this time, I would move that Mr. Callahan's pre-filed settlement supporting testimony, as previously described, be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Callahan's pre-filed settlement testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you. I will move on to Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hatcher, would you please state your name and business address for the record, please?
Yes, Larry Hatcher, 400 South.
Mr. Hatcher, please turn on that microphone, please. And you may have to pull it a little closer, too.
It's on now.
All right, thank you. It's Larry Hatcher, 400 South Tryon Street.
I'm going to need you to get a little closer to that or pull it towards you.
Let's try it again. Is that better?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So Larry Hatcher, 400 South Tryon Street, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Mr. Hatcher, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Duke Energy Progress. I'm the Senior Vice President of Customer Experiences and Services.
Thank you. Mr. Hatcher, on September 1st, 2022, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket direct testimony consisting of 30 pages?
I did.
And do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, sir.
Mr. Hatcher, if I ask you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hatcher, while you did not file settlement supporting testimony, do you support the comprehensive settlement as a fair and reasonable compromise, resulting in just and reasonable rates in the public interest, and should therefore be approved?
I do.
Mr. Callahan, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Hatcher, I really need for you to lean into that microphone. Thank you, sir. I apologize.
No, that's my fault. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Callahan and Mr. Hatcher, did you all prepare witness summaries for purposes of this hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like you to read them, please. I'm going to start with Mr. Hatcher and then end with Mr. Callahan.
All right. I'm the Senior Vice President of Customer Experiences and Services for Duke Energy Corporation, including Duke Energy Progress, LLC. In my direct testimony, I highlight our customer service efforts and how that translates to customer satisfaction. I also describe several steps that the company has taken to further improve the experience and satisfaction of our customers when they engage with us, including the deployment of our customer information system, Customer Connect, the complete rollout of our smart meters and implementation of our prepaid advantage program, enhancements to our integrated voice response system, and actions we took to serve our customers during the COVID pandemic. As a leader in the customer services organization at Duke Energy, I'm proud of our continued mission to provide safe and reliable service, transform the customer's experience, modernize the energy grid, progress our goals for a more diverse energy mix, and be a good corporate citizen, all while keeping costs low. As examples, the company's nuclear fleet is recognized as being one of the best in the industry in terms of safety, reliability, availability, and production cost. The company's fossil and hydro operations have similar superior safety, reliability, and production and cost performance. The company's transmission and distribution systems have also performed well, notwithstanding the need for continued modernization as described by witness Guyton and Malley. At Duke Energy, the customer is at the center of our purpose. Evolving customer expectations, emerging technologies, and changing public policies all converge to create a dynamic environment for Duke Energy and the industry. As described in my testimony, Duke Energy works to build genuine connections with all of our customers by listening, anticipating their needs, and offering solutions. Our response to the COVID-19 pandemic is evidence of this, as I highlighted in my testimony. We are a well-run company and have been repeatedly recognized for our efforts, including J.D. Powers, who recently named Duke Energy Progress as the third highest in electric utility customer satisfaction in the nation. The Dow Jones, Forbes, Edison Electric Institute, the U.S. Department of Labor, the NAACP, SAP, Site Selection, and the Ethosphere Institute, to name a few. I had the privilege of attending all the public hearings held by the Commission in this proceeding. I would like to personally thank our customers who came out to express their views on the company's rate case. We take issues raised by our customers very seriously, and I'm pleased to say that we communicated with most, if not all, of the customers that voiced service issues during the hearings and have either resolved or are working to resolve their issues. We recently filed a letter in this docket summarizing our efforts, and I'm available to answer any questions the Commission or the parties may have regarding these customers. This concludes the summary of my direct testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Callahan?
Good morning. My name is Mike Callahan, and I am the South Carolina president of Duke Energy, including Duke Energy Progress, which is the subject of today's hearing. Chair Belzer, Vice Chair Powers, and members of the Commission, I am pleased to appear before you today to put our rate application in perspective and provide insight into the company's future priorities. A rate case is a complex undertaking and serves a vital role in the service to our customers in South Carolina. I would like to thank this Commission, the Commission staff, the Office of Regulatory Staff, the Department of Consumer Affairs, all other parties in this proceeding, and our customers who attended public hearings to voice their opinions regarding the company's rate request. I would also like to thank my colleagues from Duke Energy. Those involved in putting this rate application together worked hard to put a serious, thoughtful, and balanced case in front of this Commission. The energy sector is in a period of transformation and profound change driven by technological advancements, environmental and regulatory mandates, extreme weather, storm activity and response, energy security and resiliency efforts, as well as evolving customer expectations. We are taking steps to keep pace with these changes, and this rate application reflects our efforts to respond to the specific needs of our South Carolina customers. We continue to work on new and improved streamlined options and versatility for customers, driven by information about how they consume energy and by tools that help them manage their consumption. My fellow panelist, Larry Hatcher, provides great perspective on the high-quality customer service we provide and our efforts to improve the customer experience when they interact with us. Larry and I attended all of the customer hearings in this proceeding, and we listened carefully to the concerns of the customers who participated. As evidenced by recent events in South Carolina and North Carolina, reliability and resiliency are essential, which is why our investments in diverse, highly efficient generation resources, our transmission and distribution grid, smart meters, and the tools we use to communicate with our customers are more critical than ever. As the company pursues an orderly transition toward achieving a diverse, more secure energy future, the voices of our customers and our investors have become increasingly clear on this topic. They expect us to have a diverse power supply and are making economic growth decisions based on those expectations. To that end, we have made investments in generation resources like highly efficient natural gas plants, nuclear, hydro, and solar. We are also making the investments necessary to support coal ash basin closure activities in compliance with federal and state requirements. All of these actions are beneficial for the state and for our customers, and the company is appropriately seeking recovery of its prudently incurred costs. We know how important electric service is for our customers, and no one wants to see bills increase. To ease the impacts of these investments on our customers, the company initially proposed to step into the full rate increase over a 2-year period, including accelerating the flowback of certain excess deferred income taxes to customers. We took these steps to help mitigate the challenging conditions our customers face. To further lessen the impact on customers, we made the decision to exclude deferred storm expenses from our requested increase in this rate case. Instead, we will seek to securitize costs from these storms as permitted by the recently enacted Act 227, which we supported. That said, I am so proud to present for this Commission's consideration a settlement agreement that is comprehensive both in the scope of issues it addresses as well as its inclusion of all parties in this proceeding. Among other provisions, if the agreement is approved, it would resolve recovery of coal ash basin closure costs in this case, as well as allow Duke Energy Progress a return on equity of 9.6%, and an equity component of the capital structure of 52.43%. Additional key terms include continuing deferral treatment for future grid improvement plan and coal ash basin closure costs, establishing a storm reserve to help offset the cost of future storms, and accelerating the remaining flowback of certain benefits from the 2018 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to help offset the base rate increase. The settlement also includes a $50 million disallowance for coal ash costs requested in this case, an agreement to not seek recovery in future cases any of the other previously disallowed coal ash costs from the 2018 rate case. Finally, the agreement includes a debt-only return for certain deferrals during the deferral period, agreement on cost allocation and rate design for purposes of this case only, enhanced vegetation management reporting, and commitments to propose initiatives to better understand and expand our income-qualified energy efficiency and demand-side management efforts. As the Commission is well aware, this case was extremely complex, as evidenced by the number of parties and witnesses in this case, the volumes of testimony filed, and the discovery received and addressed. We engaged in extensive negotiations with all parties for several weeks to get to this point, and I cannot thank the parties enough for their willingness to listen to each other, to collaborate with each other, and ultimately to negotiate with each other, particularly during the holidays. I can confidently say that all parties, each with different interests, derive benefits from the settlement in exchange for concessions, and this agreement is a true representation of compromise. As such, it is imperative that the Commission evaluate this comprehensive settlement agreement, not by the individual components, but rather by the totality of the terms. If just one of the provisions in the settlement agreement is modified, the careful, balanced resolution created by the parties may tilt. By the terms of the settlement agreement itself, any changes would allow any party to withdraw their consent. As I close my remarks, let me end on a critical concept, and that is this notion of balance. Under the laws of this state, we have the obligation and the privilege to serve our customers, and to do so reliably and affordably at some of the lowest rates in the nation. In return, as a regulated, investor-owned utility, we should have the ability to recover our prudently incurred costs, as well as an opportunity to earn a fair and reasonable return. I believe that the comprehensive settlement agreement represents a fair and reasonable resolution of the issues in this case, is in the public interest, results in just and reasonable rates. The company respectfully asks that the Commission approve the comprehensive settlement agreement in its entirety. This concludes the summary of my testimony in this proceeding.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Thank you, Mr. Hatcher. Chair Belzer, members of the Commission, the panel is now available for questions from the Commission. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I understand that in the settlement agreement, all parties have agreed to forego examination of the witnesses except for any redirect to or based on commissioner questions. Is that correct? As such, I'm not going to go through and call the list of parties for each witness. So I'll ask commissioners questions. Commissioner Carol Lee Williams.
Thank you, Chair Belzer. Thank you for being here and for all that everybody in this room has put into this case. One of the opportunities that this exchange allows me is a chance to get to know Duke Energy Progress better. So some of my questions are going to come from that particular angle. And these questions, I'm not going to identify one over the other, so y'all please go at it as you wish. I'm interested in just understanding a little bit better kind of the similarities and differences between Duke Energy Progress in South Carolina versus North Carolina. In your generation, your distribution, and how your customers receive it. It's a big, broad question. You can take it as you wish.
Well, first and foremost, I'd say there's a lot of commonality between our operations in South Carolina and North Carolina with respect to Duke Energy Progress. When I think about it, roughly out of our retail customers, approximately 10% reside in the PD area and 90% reside in North Carolina. It is a service territory that is spread out over many miles across both eastern South Carolina as well as eastern North Carolina. A broad mix of customers here in South Carolina, for example. We had Nucor as an intervener in this case, the Department of Defense on behalf of Shaw Air Force Base. And I would say North Carolina, very similar. I think about North Carolina, we also have the military there in Fayetteville. So there's a lot of commonality between the two from my perspective. Larry, would you have anything to add?
And I would just say in terms of operations, the same thing. A lot of commonality in terms of types of generation, transmission, distribution systems, and all that as well. So all very similar.
Differences? And any, while I'm got the mic, could you talk a little bit about like the percentages of where energy is generated in North Carolina versus South Carolina?
I don't have top of mind what the percentages
Okay.
are between the states because first and foremost, I would say and really underscore, we operate the system as a dual state system across the state line. It doesn't see a state line when we think about where we generate the energy, putting it on the grid to deliver it to our customers. I do know that we have significant generation in the state. I think about the Robinson Nuclear Plant as an example of a plant that was built many years ago in the state of South Carolina due to the support of this state around nuclear that has served us extremely well. And if I was to venture a guess, I would say we probably generate more energy in South Carolina than the number of customers that we actually serve because of that nuclear plant that sits here. But then we have a diverse mix of generating resources across both states, gas generation, of course, coal generation, and increasingly a lot of solar generation that sits on the Duke Energy Progress system as well.
What about any differences or similarity in terms of base rates?
I think there's a lot of commonality between the rates. We have rates that are well below the national average across all of our Carolina service territories on the order of 15 to 20% below the national average. And so I think that the rates are very similar. Some of that will depend on when an individual utility has come in for a rate case, when fuel rates have been reset, for example. We're sitting here before you today with the Duke Energy Progress rate case. There's a similar rate case underway in North Carolina that's been recently filed. So there will be some timing differences from time to time, but very similar.
I appreciate you're raising the well below the national average, and I think you said 15 to 20% below. One of my questions comes about from some of the testimony that we received in the customer public hearings, where people who had been mobile and lived in other states, talked about what they perceived as a difference in higher rates in the state. Is there anything you'd like to add in that regard?
Yes,
Understanding it's incredibly complicated.
No, I really appreciate that question, Commissioner Williams, because I think from a customer standpoint, what they are focused on, and rightfully so, is what is their total bill? What are they paying for service? When I stated 15 to 20% below the national average, I am speaking to our individual rates. So there's a rate and there's how much energy is used by a customer, which ultimately dictates what their bill is. And there are oftentimes, particularly when you are comparing bills to other areas of the country, you have to factor in things, for example, are they moving from an area where they're using gas for heat, for example? That wouldn't be on their electric bill. You have to look at the climate of the region. So if I think about areas on the West Coast, for example, that are close to the ocean, moderate temperatures, they don't use the level of energy that you would see in South Carolina in the summer, for example, to cool a home. So there are a lot of factors that go into that, but on the rate per what we charge for electricity is what I was referring to, and that is below national average by about 15 to 20%.
Thank you. Shifting gears a little bit, you applied in September, and Winter Storm Elliott happened after that application. I know that this is based on a test year, but my question is, how does this rate support meaningful ways that Duke Energy Progress can deliver service and communicate more robustly in the event of another such peaking event?
Well, first and foremost, one of the key aspects of this particular rate case was investments that we are making in the resiliency and reliability of our system. So the support from this settlement agreement, if it's approved by the Commission, would continue to allow us to make those investments in our system. As well, we have been investing in the energy transition and ensuring that we have adequate resources, the right mix of resources, and all of the above approach to generating needs on the system. So when I think about the context of an overall rate case, it is all about balance and balancing the needs of our customers for safe, affordable, reliable, and increasingly clean energy, and that balance with the utilities need to remain financially healthy so that we can raise the capital we need to continue to invest on behalf of our customers. So we'll continue to do that as a result of this. You mentioned communicating to our customers. Winter Storm Elliott, that is certainly an area that I can tell you that we're very much focused on internally. It's an area where we regret the experience that our customers faced in Winter Storm Elliott. It was a challenging weekend in terms of the weather that we experienced, but that's a particular area we're really focused on. How can we better communicate with our customers should an event like that ever occur again?
Thank you. Shifting gears again, it appeared to me that the company did not address any COVID-related cost in this proceeding. Is that true?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Do you intend to address the financial effects of COVID in any future proceedings?
No, I don't believe that we do. And Larry, you can speak to some of what we did on behalf of customers during COVID, but no, we did not seek recovery of the costs from how we addressed COVID for our customers.
Correct, Mike. And, a lot of what we did during COVID, we immediately suspended disconnections so that if customers were impacted by COVID or their jobs were impacted by COVID, they didn't risk getting disconnected. We eliminated late payment fees as part of that as well, and we also suspended fees associated with walk-in payment stations. So there were some costs that we absorbed all along through that experience. And to Mike's point, to my knowledge, we have no intent to file to recover those.
You kind of trailed off.
I'm sorry, no intent to file to recover those, to my knowledge.
Is there any on your books? Is there any bad debt associated with COVID? I realize that's a hard thing to determine. That's on your books.
There was certainly, I would say, bad debt associated with the experience our customers faced during COVID, the challenges that they faced. Larry can speak at depth around the number of activities that we undertook to really help our customers take advantage. There were a lot of federal dollars, for example, LIHEAP. We worked with South Carolina Housing Authority, South Carolina State Plus program. We did a number of things to help ensure that those dollars went to the highest and best use and really minimized the bad debt experience that we faced. Larry, do you have anything to?
Yeah, so we are seeing some increases in arrearages from customers, primarily because we extended their payment arrangement durations, so they had longer durations to make payments versus what they had pre-COVID. So we have seen some increases in total arrearages. We've done a lot to try to help customers through that. So I wanted to give you a couple examples. If you look at the work that we did with the South Carolina Housing Authority in terms of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, we were able to get about $11.1 million an aid to our customers in 2019 and $14.3 million in 2020. In terms of South Carolina State Plus, we had $13 million in payments that were provided to customers. That's about 13,200 customers. And for DEP specific, DEP South Carolina specific, about $9.8 million for 9,600 customers. So we continue to do a lot working with our local agencies, nonprofits, state and federal agencies to try to get funding in. And that does not include LIHEAP funding as well, that we work to help these customers be able to make these payments so that we can, they can make their payments and we can get these arrearages down associated with COVID.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Callahan, I think this was in your testimony originally, a discussion about a $7 million decrease in fuel operations and maintenance expenses.
Yes, that's correct.
Would you tell me more about the components of that? I'm wondering if it's something we can expect in the future, or was it a one-time occurrence? Was there something you learned that's replicable? That kind of question.
Sure. It's really a number of things. I don't know that I can pinpoint any particular area other than to say, as a company, we're continuously looking for opportunities to drive efficiencies in our business, reduce costs, automate processes where we can. We actually, due to the benefit of the scale of Duke Energy, we have an innovation center that provides a service to all of our utilities and works to, again, automate things, drive out costs, take advantage of new tools like drones and so on. It's really just a number of things that we continue to drive out costs because we recognize that costs at the end of the day in a cost of service business end up on bills. And that's one of the drivers around why we are able to have rates that are 15 to 20% below the national average.
If I could make one correction on a previous comment I made.
Of course.
The 11.1 and 14.3 million dollar numbers were LIHEAP funding. The other numbers were for South Carolina State Plus. I just wanted to make sure I clarified that.
Meaning the source was LIHEAP
Yes, ma'am.
for North Carolina and South Carolina, or?
DEP South Carolina.
Okay. How much of a, going back to the 7 million, if you had not had those innovations and those savings, what kind of impact would that additional 7 million have had on a customer's bill? Just out of curiosity, it may not be a off the top of your head kind of question.
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I know Witness Elliott can likely answer that for you.
Okay, good. We have learned, those of us that are still the newbies, we've learned ask your questions to the first panel and then move on down.
We'll try to help you if we can answer it.
Right. Thank you. I'm shifting gears again to the coal ash recovery. I read in the settlement testimony, and I just want to kind of understand that better. And here's what I think I read, and want you to correct me in any way needed. That there's at least $573 million at a system level in coal ash recovery that's been spent. This agreement disallows $50 million of the total. Is that $50 million at the South Carolina level or the system level?
Yes, that $50 million is at the South Carolina level. I believe in this case we requested $108 million. So $50 million would be relative to the 108. The number that you referred to, as you said, is the system-wide cost across North and South Carolina.
So the 300 million, the 573 million is system.
System cost, yes.
And then in the settlement, you agreed to 300 million at the system level from a prior case being permanently foregone and not requested to go into rate base? Into
Yes.
rate?
Yes, that is correct. I believe that we agreed to the disallowance of all costs going back to the 2018 rate case. I don't recall the exact numbers on a system versus South Carolina level. Witness Elliott can certainly walk through all that detail, but yes, all costs from the 2018 rate case, we agreed to a disallowance.
Does the settlement allow for coal ash cost incurred after the 2018 rate case to be potentially recovered in future proceedings?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again?
For coal ash cost, if it was incurred after 2018, can it potentially be recovered in future proceedings?
I think there was a piece of the $50 million disallowance that included costs post 2018. For those that are a one-time disallowance, those costs we cannot seek recovery in a future case. All other costs we can. And all parties, if the settlement is approved, reserve the right to make different arguments in future proceedings on that.
And I skipped over part of my, now I'm going to let it go. Okay. This switches gears to board of directors and the top 5 executive cost. I understand the settlement removes 50% of the board of directors cost. And I want to understand from DEP's perspective why customers should pay board of directors cost.
Well, from my perspective, to your point, we did exclude 50% of those costs. So if the settlement agreement's approved, this would be a resolved issue. But from the company's standpoint, our position on that is we are a publicly traded, investor-owned utility. A board of directors is a requirement of a publicly traded company. There is value to having the experience that we have in an independent body between our shareholders and management, overseeing the operations of the company. And there's a cost associated with that, and there is value to that to all of our utilities.
That's helpful. Thank you. And the same question for the 50%, well, for the top executive cost. I realize the 50% is a compromise. Do you want to add anything in terms of why the full top 5 executives' costs should be covered by customers?
I would say in a very similar manner to what I mentioned about the board. I mean, first and foremost, as a company, we design our compensation plans to ensure that we can attract and retain the talent needed to provide this high-quality service to our customers. And we design those compensation plans commensurate where the market is. And so, when I think about the need for a team of executives running this company, it's a diverse company. I mentioned the scale of the company. There's a lot of benefits that provides to our customers. That's a component of all that.
And similarly, related to the incentive compensation, same question as it relates to how it supports your ESP and TSR, which I have no clue what that stands for, but I can imagine what it means.
So the measures that were referred to was EPS, earnings per share, and TSR, which is total shareholder return. Those are metrics that are certainly monitored by Wall Street, but I do think there's a lot of benefit to our customers as well. When we are a well-run company and our customers do well, our shareholders do well. And when our shareholders do well, our customers do as well. I think there is a lot of alignment between, it's not a zero-sum game from my perspective. I think that when we do well, again, from a customer perspective, shareholders do as well, and that sometimes is reflected in things like EPS and TSR.
Thank you. I think the remaining of my questions really come from the customer public hearing. Just customers ask what they would see in exchange for the increased rates. How does the settlement address that point, that question?
Well, I think that the settlement, first and foremost, has a qualitative benefit to all the parties here. When I think about how incredibly capital intensive this business is, we do have a need to be able to hit the capital markets, and it may not be at our own choosing of when. For example, when a storm hits, we don't just have cash sitting around to respond to that storm. Every day we are actually operating as a cash negative business, and we go to the capital markets to fill that gap on behalf of our customers. And so from my perspective, the comprehensive settlement agreement really shows, if it's approved by the commission, it shows predictability, it shows consistency, it shows a constructive regulatory environment. And that is something that certainly investors are looking for, the credit rating agencies, and ultimately that accrues to the benefit of our customers because it provides us with access to the capital markets at the lowest possible cost for our customers. So that's overall what I would say, how the settlement agreement can benefit our customers.
The thing I would add to that too, with grid modernization, it is part of, improving our grid operations, improves reliability for the customers. And it also gives the ability where we can recover the grid faster after storm events. So they should see improvement in that space as well.
Farming customers ask how their bills could be so much higher than in Georgia. Does the settlement address that request? And is there a stakeholder engagement process that would make sense with the farming community?
So I can't speak to the Georgia rate, but what I can speak to is, post those events, Mike and I have had several conversations. We have folks that currently engage with the Farm Bureau and other pieces of the ag community today. But one of the things that we talked about was Mike's team already has a stakeholder process where they go out into the communities with nonprofits and other agencies, and we meet with customers and answer questions that they have. We may want to get more intentional with the ag community in some of those meetings as well to be able to answer their questions and talk through some of their rate options. In addition to that, we're on the cusp of having basically a rate calculator so that they can go on our website and take a look at their rate options and determine if there's another rate out there that may be beneficial to them as well. The other thing that we've done post Customer Connect, that since we've gone to one common customer information system platform, we've been able to implement a business service center. And as part of this business service center, a piece of that, we have a group that serves customers with 1 to 6 accounts, and we have another group that serves customers with 6+ accounts before you become a large account. And it gives a more tailored service model to our ag customers, which many of them fall in that 1 to 6 account category, so that they're even more trained, more in tune with the different rate options that these customers have, and can better serve that customer base. So as they call in now to be able to get service, they're directed to that specialty group to help them work through their questions and concerns.
And
Is that a new since the customer public hearing, or did that exist prior to that, or when did it go into place?
It was stood up in the fourth quarter of this past year, and it was post implementation of our Customer Connect project.
Customers who have experienced bills and other, I covered that one before and you answered it. Thank you. This may relate to Customer Connect because many of the customers indicated concerns alerting the call center and lack of results. Does the stipulation, how does the stipulation relate to that concern?
So we went back and reviewed every customer concern that came up in the public hearings. All of the concerns that were raised in terms of, bill accuracy, their bills are changing, reliability, all those things we went back and took a look at. We found two customer instances where we didn't meet expectations in terms of call center performance and/or one customer who actually his bill had been calculated incorrectly and had to be adjusted. All the other interactions that we went back and reviewed, our call records that we went back and reviewed, those did meet our expectations of how we serve the customers, but the customers weren't necessarily happy with the outcomes because their usage did equate to the bill amounts that they were seeing, and their bill adjustments on their payment, their budget billing plans were accurate. So we were able to work with some of those customers to temporarily lower their payments to give them more time to figure out how to address that gap between their usage and their bill. And we're continuing to work with them with other agencies to try to get them that assistance. The two customers that we had that didn't meet expectations, Mr. Gill was one of them. And he had called into the call center to ask a question about his bill and also inquire about optional rates. And this was right after we cut over with Customer Connect. I'm not going to make an excuse about it, but it was right at that timing. And so we didn't get back with him as fast as we should have with the answers to his questions. So that was one. Mr. Rockmore was the other customer who had an issue with his budget billing plan. And when he came up for his quarterly adjustment, that calculation was done in the back office. And the query that was done to look at his previous 12 months had to go in and look at some legacy system data information. So that query pulled in some incorrect data. So he did get a bill for the incorrect amount. That has since been corrected. And he was also moved to the annual plan per his request. So I'm pleased to say that we were able to address their issues. Again, some of them didn't get addressed maybe to their liking because they were hoping the bill would be less. But based on their usage and based on our review of the accuracy of their bills, they were accurate.
And on the settlement agreement, if I could just reinforce, Customer Connect, there are costs associated with that in this case. And I'm excited about the opportunity that this new system presents. I mean, the system that we retired was what, 30 years old, Larry? Yep. This provides a lot of opportunity to enhance the tools, the communication, et cetera, that we have with our customers.
What I'm recalling from their testimony was discussion about the physical location of the call center and the amount of time it took to hear back. You did, Mr. Hatcher, you reflected that in one of the cases. What did you find in terms of the amount of time it took back? It took to call them back, and is it true that Customer Connect is based in Raleigh?
No, ma'am. So the two cases I mentioned, they didn't meet our expectations on the time it took to get back to the customer.
Okay.
In terms of the Raleigh call center that came up during the hearing, we do have a call center in Raleigh. The DEP calls are routed through that call center. But in 2020, when COVID hit, we went remote with our contact center operation. We do still have some folks that physically go into the office because they like going into the office versus working remote now that we're out of the pandemic. Most of our agents continue to work remote. We've put systems in place, procedures in place, policies in place that has allowed that to continue. And as part of that, we have over 60 Duke Energy employee reps that work in the state of North Carolina. We have over 300 vendor reps that work in South Carolina, I meant to say. We have over 300 vendor reps that actually work out of a vendor we have in Greenville, South Carolina. So many of those calls are routed to those reps that serve in DEP, South Carolina. It goes to the 1-800 number that's, in Raleigh, but those are routed to the reps that serve South Carolina. We do like our reps to live within an hour of a physical location where we've got backup generation and we've got backup phone capability so that when we do get into a major storm event, if they were to lose power at their home, they have the ability to come in and we can still serve our customers.
So when you're talking about the customers who you were able to connect with from the public hearings, what percentage of them were able to, were you all able to connect with? We saw you all, making it clear who they should reach out to and try to connect with people as they left. But what percentage of those that came and testified to us do you think? Quality of service. Having trouble with the formatting of my questions and being able to see them. I want to give you a chance to, and perhaps you've already done that. I apologize. I wanted to give you a chance to respond from the customer public hearing, but I really think the two of you have already done that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think we've hit on a lot of it. When I think about the overall system, we benchmark ourselves against other utilities, and I think we score very well in terms of our cost profile. That's with respect to generation, that's with respect to our T&D infrastructure and maintenance. And I would just really underscore again that it is a mindset that we have every day, because we recognize that reducing costs ultimately at the end of the day helps reduce bills for our customers.
The other thing I would add is, you heard from a segment of customers at these hearings. I'd like to give you a little broader perspective that we hear from on a more routine basis. As I said in my testimony, we just in December of this year received the J.D. Powers information from their surveys. And we were ranked third in the nation in DEP in terms of customer satisfaction. We were ranked number 2 in the South large segment, only 1 point behind our competitor who ranked above us, so essentially almost tied. And, the J.D. Powers measures customer satisfaction related to reliability, price, billing and payment, corporate citizenship, communications, and customer care. So when you look at it on an aggregate scale and the information that our customers are providing back to this survey, and even in our own internal surveys that we send out, our customers are satisfied with the performance that we're provided. Our goal is to be number 1. We're going to continue to shoot to be number 1, but currently number 3. And that's the third year in a row that we've been in the top quartile in performance in J.D. Powers for DEP South Carolina. The other thing I would say in terms of the hearings, I personally attended the hearings. I had members of my staff attend the hearings, and we do that for a number of reasons. We need to hear what our customers are telling us, and we take every piece of feedback, every complaint as personal. We've done something that's either created an issue for a customer, or the customer's not fully understanding their bill, or we haven't been able to articulate that message, and we need to understand what that is. And because of that passion to serve our customers, we've been able to reduce our customer complaints by 70% from 2018 to 2022. So in 2018, we had 596 complaints that we registered that year. 2022, 180. And again, the reason for that is we continue to work with customers to understand their issues and try to find solutions to help resolve their issues. And these hearings are no different. We treated them the same exact way.
And just for clarity, that data is related to Duke Energy Progress in South Carolina?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay. Only 2 more questions. I said that for the benefit of everybody who's endured this patiently. At least one customer expressed interest in understanding what would happen to rates in the 3rd year. As I reviewed the settlement documentation, I missed seeing where that was identified. What is the plan for rates going into effect as of the end of 2025 after the EDIT rider is no longer in effect? Is that in the testimony? Did I just miss it? And probably more importantly to me, how is that going to be messaged to the customer? Because as I understand it, they're going to be, you are phasing in this by virtue of how it's been calculated. And so there's an ultimate number in 2025, or maybe that at some point around that time period that customers will begin paying. And so that's the spirit of my question.
So I think that if my numbers are correct, at a high level, the average increase with the EDIT is about 5.89% if the commission was to approve the settlement
Right.
agreement. That would increase to 8.83% after 25, so 1/1/26 and beyond. A lot of things can happen between now and 2025. I think there will be, we'll be coming in for fuel. I'm hopeful that fuel starts to come down over time. Obviously, can't predict exactly what that'll do. But I do think there's also going to be some important benefits here in the near future on the Inflation Reduction Act. We talked about that in an allowable ex parte, where we talked about, for example, nuclear production tax credits that will be available to us. And those are all timed nicely because that could be an opportunity in the future to help sort of normalize where rates are going. But we'll have to determine at that time what the overall rate structure looks like for our customers, how we message that. But we're very mindful of, which you're referring to, this step up in rates.
So I appreciate the hope in that answer, but how would you imagine if you don't have anything that offsets that increase, how will you message the complication of, a rate this year, a rate the next year, a rate the next year, and there hasn't been anything about coming to the Public Service Commission? If those hopeful things don't happen, how do you convey that?
Well, I think we continue to convey where we think costs are going. And this isn't something we haven't had in the past. I mean, we have had agreements before where we've used, for example, cost of removal as a mitigant to step into rates and message that to customers over time. When we issued our press release on this rate case, I believe we referred to the fact that there was excess deferred income taxes that was a component of this. So it's really getting the message out there, I think, is what's going to be important.
Yeah, and being able to communicate that message where it's understandable. We continue to, again, listen to our customers, understanding what they're trying to hear is how does this impact me and my bill, right? And being able to articulate that message so that they can understand it is something we continue to work on.
Okay, thank you. Last one. Many of the customers talked about out-of-control bills. Some of the Duke Energy Progress testimony talked about new and renewed commitment to energy efficient programs. Would you share your perspective on that element of the settlement agreement?
Yeah. So there is an agreement as a part of this overall framework that we will endeavor to enhance some of the energy efficiency and DSM programs that we have, including looking further into some of the income qualified opportunities available. And to be honest with you, a lot of those details are going to be worked out, but we have the right place for them to be worked out with the EE-DSM collaborative, where we can bring together stakeholders, identify solutions that make sense for our customers, make sense for the state of South Carolina, and then come before you with proposals for the commission to consider going forward. So I think there's real opportunity here for us to continue to enhance. We already have significant EE-DSM programs. In fact, I think that if you look at the Carolinas, so not just Duke Energy Progress, we have more energy efficiency than I believe all of the other utilities in the Southeast combined. And so we continue to work on this, but I do think that there will be opportunities through that EE-DSM collaborative to continue to grow that opportunity.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you very much. I appreciate both of your testimonies.
Thank
No
you.
further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Thomas, we've been going about 2 hours, and I'd like to give the court reporter and everybody a quick break if we could. Does that suit? Okay. Let's take about a 10-minute break and return at, I'm looking at my clock, my phone, it says 11:31, so we will return in 15 minutes, well, 11:45. 11:45. Thank you. Gentlemen, you're under oath. Please don't discuss your testimony with anyone or allow anyone to discuss it with you or talk to you about it. Thank you. Good morning and welcome back, Public Service Commission of South Carolina. We are continuing in the hearing in docket number 2022-254-E regarding the application of Duke Energy Progress LLC for an increase in rates, adjustments in rate schedules and tariffs, and request for an accounting order. Let's take a roll call of commissioners. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioner J. Williams, Vice Chair Powers, Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner C. Williams, Commissioner Caston, Chair Belser, and with us virtually we have Commissioner Irvin. We are in commissioner questions of our first witness panel, and we recognize Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to express my thanks to all of the parties and all of the work that went into this. I can't even really imagine what all went on behind the scenes over the holidays and weekends and evenings. I remember the day the hearing was supposed to start, and the chair came into my office and she said that they've reached a settlement. I truly believe that she was kidding. I didn't. Anyway, so thank you. And also, I'd like to say thanks to Commissioner Carol Lee Williams. I don't have very many questions. She pretty well hit most of the topics that I had. But let me mention two things, or ask about two things. And one is the Edith Rider, and that expires in whenever it is, 2.5 years. And I know you mentioned that there are a lot of things going on that can change between now and then, but this is something that if this is approved, that is going to happen. And I would just encourage communication on that topic. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how to tell you how to do it. I don't know if you can, if it's going to be a line item on the bill, you can put it in great big bold, underlined, highlighted, this expires such and such a date. Not that anybody even looks at the bill. I don't know. But to me, it's a concern that really make an effort to communicate.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Right. And the other point that kind of came to my mind was when you were talking about the remote work in connection with the call center people and the need to be within an hour of a place with the backup power and everything. That makes a lot of sense, but obviously you thought about the issues with transportation during storms for those people to get to the place, flooding, trees down, and amazingly power lines go down. But so I don't know how you deal with that. Any comments on that?
Yes, sir. So we have processes and procedures, and it depends on the severity of the storm and the risk that we're facing. And if it looks like it's going to be a significant hurricane, for example, then we would go ahead and mobilize folks in prior to the storm. If it looks like it's going to be heavy thunderstorm activity, then probably not, right? But there's processes that we've go through. We have someone that is dedicated to storm watch, storm duty every week that tracks that for us, and we monitor that very closely. And depending on what comes up, we bring in our whole team to make those decisions.
Okay. All right, and let me ask a question a little bit more about the budget billing. It seems to me that we heard a lot at the public hearings, and we heard a good bit about quarterly budget billing plan and the annual budget billing plan. And I don't know, I just kind of had a hard time seeing how the quarterly budget billing plan brings much value to customers. That's just my thought based on what I was hearing. Any comments about how that works, how those two work together, and if you've learned anything or can make improvements based on the input that was received?
Sure. So really, those two plans are two options that we try to give customers as another tool to help them manage, their bills, that they can sign up or choose it or not choose it. We went to two plans mainly because we got a lot of feedback out of the annual plan on the annual true-up, and customers were not necessarily happy with a larger true-up at the end of a 12-month period. So we created a quarterly plan to try to minimize those true ups and those changes in their bills so they wouldn't be as significant. Now, that was with the thought process of we wouldn't necessarily be in some of the economic conditions that we're currently in terms of inflation, in terms of fuel prices, and then we had some hot months and some pretty cold months this past year too, where their usage changed. So they're seeing all of that impact their bill, and that's what we heard come out, you know, in those hearings. They're seeing it more frequently on a quarterly plan, obviously, than they would on an annual plan. But they also see the accumulated balance on the annual plan on their bill, but oftentimes they still are surprised by the amount at the end of that year. So we're talking a lot about how do we continue to educate on those options, making sure customers understand what they're signing up for. Doesn't mean your payment's going to be the same 12 months out of the year. That if your usage does go up, or if there's a fuel adjustment or a rate case, those adjustments are going to be built into those quarterly adjustments that you're going to see. We've communicated that, you know, in writing to our customers, but you know, maybe we need to do other things like videos and other types of explanations for customers. So we're talking a lot about that as well. Again, back to the pop-up events that Michael's team is doing and we're participating in. Those are other opportunities for us to look for educational opportunities with these customers. We have about 10, 11,000 customers on budget billing. And so, you know, we believe it's a small enough group that we should be able to do better in terms of them understanding what's impacting their bill on a quarterly basis.
And if I could, you mentioned the pop-ups. So coming out of the 2018 rate case, we heard loud and clear that our customers want to hear from us through different channels. You mentioned, you know, in writing for certain things. My community relations team has done a number of grassroots events that we've stood up over the last 4 years. Pop-up events, Larry mentioned. These are events where, in the beginning, we were trying to hold Duke Energy events in our communities. We certainly got some uptake, but not what we really wanted to see. So what we've learned over the course of the last 4 years is pair this up with other community events that are going on. For example, there was a back-to-school event in one of our communities that had 400 or 500 people attend, I believe. And so we put up our own stand there. We have people available, ready, people in the call center ready to take phone calls and work through customer issues. So if you have an issue, you can come talk to us about it. We also do what we call power hours in some of our smaller communities that might not have a big pop-up event. So we go to a local library in, you know, a Manning or Chirac or Atlanta, and we sit there. It's like office hours almost in college, where you can come in with your questions, and we're going to be there from 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock. Just so that we can really touch our customers and help them through their issues. And I do think that that's one of the things that is a contributing factor to that, you know, number 3 in the nation on J.D. Power, as we try to find these solutions to really connect with our customers.
The other thing I would add that was crossing my mind as Mike was speaking, you know, we had some customers say, well, they told me I didn't qualify to go on the plan. And that's true. And if you go back and look at these specific customers, one of those customers had outstanding debt on the account, which would not allow them to go into a budget billing plan. And then we had another customer who wanted to be on the annual plan, but had just moved into a brand new home, and you didn't have 12 months of usage history on that home to be able to put them in an annual plan. But she did qualify for the quarterly plan, and that's where we ended up, you know, with her. So there are circumstances that would make it where a customer could not go on one of the other plans.
Okay, and you mentioned a minute ago, I think you said something like 11,000 people, and is that on the quarterly or the annual or both?
Out of that 11,000, if the last numbers I saw, I think we had 87% on the quarterly, 13% on the annual.
Okay. And if you are on the annual plan, then that amount, does it actually stay fixed for the period, or does it get adjusted by fuel adjustments or other things?
So it's yes and no to that question. If as long as the usage or the fuel adjustment or the other things that happen along the way don't exceed a certain tolerance level that we have built into the bill amount, then they stay on that amount. If that usage goes up to where if you look back over their 12-month period, it gets outside that tolerance, then those are adjusted because they're outside of a normal tolerance, and they would have potentially a very high annual adjustment if we didn't make that change.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Vice Chair Powers?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. I think one of the best questions I've heard in a lot of these things is Commissioner Williams asked you, which I think is an excellent question. How does this rate increase benefit the rate payers? Your answer, Mr. Callahan, I couldn't help but think about trickle-down economics, how the money goes one way and it's supposed to benefit them another. And I really struggle with, I think, the effect that the public hearings had on all of us. I think Duke included. People are suffering. We cringe when we see these press releases about these numbers that people are seeking as far as a return, because it all comes down to we kind of take the heat for all this, and that's our jobs. As you heard, and I heard, people are paying $6 a dozen for eggs. I didn't believe it. I went to the grocery store. I paid $6 for eggs. Heard about people taking cold showers, wrapping themselves in blankets. And I know you're also aware that the stock market, which, I'm reaching that age where I was kind of hoping there was going to be a big golden egg there. I think most of that golden egg got taken by the stockbrokers themselves, and I'm just, stock markets plummet, and people are really suffering. And I think what we hear is that if the public has to tighten their belts, why can't Duke? Is the feeling. And I got a question here somewhere. What I really like, and I'm proud to see, is that in this case, everybody's represented. Environmental people are represented. ORS is here to represent the public. Although I guess with the name Public Service Commission, we're considered to be those people. Businesses are represented. Of course, the company's well represented. Industries such as our big industries, Walmart, Nucor, those sort of things are here. And I think that's good if people are watching. But people are watching that bottom line. And I'm really concerned that all we've dealt with is raises. You can shift it to the business sector. It's going to trickle down into higher costs for consumers. And I'm sure the consumer affairs people are aware of that. I just want to understand how this is in the best interest of the public and to the ratepayers in a time when we're going through so much turmoil.
Yes, and we certainly, as you said, we heard that at the public hearings as well. There are definitely a lot of our customers who are struggling right now. And we knew that before the public hearings. That was part of the reason why when we put forth this rate request, we did try to get creative around what can we do to help moderate this rate increase. So things like the acceleration of the excess deferred income taxes to help offset this for a period of time. The proposal around cost of removal to help reduce the overall rate increase. Managing costs over the last 4 years, that $7 million reduction that we talked about, doing everything we can. You mentioned tightening the belt. We've done what we can on our end to help try to mitigate that. At the same time, I think customers do expect that we continue to invest in the resiliency and reliability of our system, which we have been doing over the last several years. We've seen the benefit of that, for example, from some of the technology on our system. When we have storms, we can reroute power and minimize outages. I think it's somewhere on the order of 550,000. I can't remember if it's minutes or hours in my testimony, but reducing that impact to customers. storm hardening. We're in a area of the country that is prone to hurricane risk, and these investments help minimize the impact to our customers. We had the Asheville combined cycle plant that came into service, and we had been deferring the costs included in this overall proposal. I think that benefits customers as well. It's one of the most highly efficient natural gas plants on our system and results in low cost, reliable power for our customers. So it's a balance. We recognize that. That's why we work so hard, as you mentioned, with all of these parties, 12 parties representing numerous interess, 52 witnesses where we went into, issue by issue. So to come to resolution on this is something that I'm proud of, that we could put forth, again, a package subject to the Commission's approval that I think balances the needs of our customers who are hurting right now and the financial health and integrity of the utility.
And I'm just reminded that when we first came on this panel, there was a case, and it may have been a Dominion case, where with COVID being in place, that these things were delayed. And I'm glad y'all did reach some sort of agreement. You're a publicly traded company, but you're a government regulated company. And I think one of the big things that everybody wants is transparency. The public asks over and over, they want to know about these big salaries and stuff. I'm not asking that. My question is that when we talk about 50% of something being removed, whether it's board of directors, executive compensation, if they want to know what is 50% of what it is, as far as a number, is that information available through the website or through requests by individuals or whatever? I mean, 50% of what is what, they want to know. I don't want to know. I'm not asking that. But what sort of information as far as your what do you call the things I get in the mail? But what your website, let's just say, or your written materials, what sort of information is available that people can understand?
Well, if you specifically talk to the board of directors, if you talk to the top 5 executive officers, or what are referred to as named executive officers, and I believe that this is under the securities rules, we're required to do this. We file a proxy statement with the SEC that has the salaries and so on, the compensation package for those top 5 officers available on our website, available on the SEC's website, that would delineate all of that cost.
Okay, so that
it
is available if somebody
available.
really wanted to know.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank all of you for what you've done to get this agreement. I couldn't help but think when you talked about pop-up events, do these employees get combat pay when they go to these things?
They often get a pat on the back when they resolve the customer's issue, which is nice to see, because sometimes people just need someone to walk them through it, talk them through it.
Well, they want to see it. They want to see all, and it's good that you do that. That I really appreciate. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Powers. Commissioner Justin Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gentlemen, good to see you this morning. Thank you for the settlement. Everyone worked. I imagine you had to work hard. Appreciate you all's leadership in that. I don't want to waste time or be disrespectful of the hard work that everyone put into the settlement, but I do have a couple of questions. I'm concerned about your service territory, the customers there, DEP. I think it's an area that struggles with some poverty. It's a rural area, and there's just issues that are going to be unique to an area that is rural and impoverished. So when you say that your North Carolina customers are similar to your South Carolina customers, what information are you using to draw that comparison?
I'm not using any specific information. It's just my general awareness. But you are correct that the PD region of the state is certainly more rural, more impoverished than perhaps other part of our service territory across both South Carolina and North Carolina. Certainly different from the upstate, and with respect to that would be different from North Carolina, I would imagine.
Right. And I appreciate you making that acknowledgement. So what is your vision or strategy to bring some level of equity to customers in that area, the DEP area? And I'll give you an example. I hate to say this, but before, I'm just being vulnerable here and transparent. Before I took this job, I rarely looked at. Let me be honest here. I had never looked at my kilowatt usage. I just looked at the amount I owed. And so when I see and hear the proposals for a rate increase, and it says based on average uses, 1,000 kilowatt hours. I hear that, and I see what that number looks like, what the increase would be based on that round, easy to use number. And then I hear testimony at a public hearing from one of your customers that says in order to manage their usage and manage their bill, essentially, or ultimately rather, that they take cold showers, they keep the thermostat very low in the winter, very high in the summer, wash clothes at night, and so forth and so on. What I would consider somewhat extreme measures, at least to me. And then they say they use about 1,200 kilowatt hours per month. I have a hard time accepting that. Is there anything that you all are doing, when I say you all, your team, is doing to try to bring some equity to customers like that?
Well, certainly if the commission approves this settlement, that was one of the components of the settlement agreement, was around the EEDSM collaborative, looking at opportunities to improve, for example, income qualified programs. I do think there is opportunity. I heard that same customer talking about the 1,200 kilowatt hours, which, you know, you'd understand, why does a customer use that much if they're really using the measures that you talked about, lowering their usage through the thermostat, through cold showers, et cetera. And we do have a number of programs. I know I'll give Larry an opportunity, like our Neighborhood Energy Saver program and other things to help these customers. I was encouraged by a number of customers we heard at the public hearings did talk about the energy audits, Duke showing up, weatherization. Those are the types of programs that we have available exactly for those customers who have a need to reduce their usage. And I think those programs work effectively. There's certainly more room to go and more opportunity, but that's one of the things that comes to mind around how we can help those customers.
Okay.
What I would add to that is, you know, it's unique, but it's not completely unique. We're working with a lot of regulators and commissions across all of our jurisdictions to figure out how do we combat, you know, this issue. And so it's not specifically unique to DEP South Carolina. And working things through, you know, all the way from spectrums of low-income collaboratives and what can we do from a corporation and a legislation to be able to bring more equity to this group of customers. Things like we developed an agency team within our organization to strictly work with a lot of the state and federal agencies to be able to get funds quicker to these customers, and we did a lot of that right after COVID. So there's a lot of ideas and being considered and that we're trying to move on. I do agree with Mike. One of I think the biggest opportunities is around how do we get into the homes, take a look at energy efficiency programs and reduce that usage amount as a key component to this. And I think that's going to take a collaboration between the utility, you all, and the legislative bodies to bring better solutions.
And just one other thing, if I could add, when I think about that region of the state, another thing that we do, and we do this across the state, but always mindful of trying to find opportunities for the PD around economic development. I was excited to be in Florence in December when we announced Envision, which is a large battery manufacturer that will be building a facility. I think it's an $800 million facility, somewhere around the order of 1,100 jobs. And I'm encouraged when we can attract that kind of industry to the region. Similar to when BMW came to the upstate 20, 30 years ago, there's a lot of suppliers that grow up around that. And it happens, you end up with a multiplier effect. And I'm encouraged by where the state is going with respect to things like electric vehicles, that opportunity. Like I said, this is a battery manufacturer that will serve BMW. So those are some of the other things that I would say that we're mindful of when we think about that region of the state.
Thank you, gentlemen, and I would agree. Economic development is very important, so I'm glad that's on your radar. So I think, Mr. President, you said something to the fact that you see the system as one system, not South Carolina customers versus North Carolina customers, or not even versus, but just you don't see your system that way. Is that an accurate statement?
No, thank you for asking for the clarification on that. That was with respect to the operations of our dual state system. So the generating plants, the transmission, the distribution, how we operate to serve our customers, provide that electricity. With respect to how it's regulated, it is clear. It is regulated between South Carolina and North Carolina. So Duke Energy, we have Duke Energy Carolinas, we have Duke Energy Progress, effectively 4 separate jurisdictions, 4 separate rate structures that are clearly have oversight from the Public Service Commission of South Carolina with respect to South Carolina and the North Carolina Utilities Commission with respect to North Carolina.
Okay. Is it possible, based on all of that and what's in your fleet, your generation fleet, do you think it's possible to focus on one set of customers more than the other?
With respect to which type of customers? Are we talking North Carolina, South Carolina here? Or,
Is it possible? Is it possible within the current framework that North Carolina customers could potentially be subsidizing South Carolina customers or vice versa?
I don't know that I would say that there's any inherent subsidy there, but I do think it's challenging to, if you will, separate the two, again, because of the way that these systems have been designed and operated over the last really 100 years. I think about the fact that we have generating facilities in both states, and a lot of those facilities were put where it was most economical for the customers of both states. So a lot of our coal plants were built in North Carolina because they were closer to the low-cost coal supply. They had rail to a lot of those locations, and it made sense for the customers of, frankly, both North Carolina and South Carolina for us to build those facilities there. I think about South Carolina. I mentioned Robinson Nuclear. There's been tremendous support over the last 50, 60 years in the state of South Carolina for nuclear, and I am glad we have 6 of our 11 nuclear plants sitting here in South Carolina, providing low-cost, highly reliable energy to our customers. So it is challenging to separate the two, but I think there are benefits that are provided to the customers of both states from the size and scale of this system that we operate.
Right, absolutely, and I appreciate that brief history lesson, and it leads me to my next question. I know that that was the original design and intent 100 years ago, plus or minus, but does it still make sense today? And I'm talking about South Carolina customers. Is there something you could do within the management of your generation fleet to drive costs down for South Carolina customers? Anything?
I do believe that we drive costs down for customers, again, from the scale that we have from the system that operates across both states. I think it would be challenging when you think about, for example, 6 nuclear plants sitting in South Carolina. I want to be in a framework where North Carolina customers are paying their share of those costs. Something on the order of 70 to 80% of the costs of those plants are recovered from North Carolina customers.
Okay. And so, based on your answers to my question, is it fair to say that you believe the current framework that Duke uses in managing their fleet provides the lowest cost energy to DEP customers?
Yes, I do.
All right. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. I'd just like a clarification before we move to the next commissioner. When you say 6 nuclear units operating in South Carolina, are those in DEP territory?
No, I'm sorry. That
Okay.
was just across both Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Caston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first, I'd like to apologize to the chair, commission, everyone for my tardiness, which is a long time ago, but I hadn't forgotten it. And you better believe she hasn't. I respect y'all's time, and I would never think mine's more important than yours. I knew when it started. I simply set my alarm wrong. I'm without excuse. So that's it. And also, I recognize Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Callahan, that all of those public hearings, I saw you guys there too. And I think that speaks well of everyone. I know Duke did not come empty-handed. You guys brought a lot of people. Probably need a bus.
We take it serious, sir.
Yes, we do.
But don't charge customers for that bus. I'm kidding. I guess as I heard Commissioner Carol E. Williams and Commissioner Jay Williams' questions, it actually, some of mine were answered, but it did cause me to make sure I understood some things I want to follow up on. And going back to the rolling blackout issue, and I'm not sure I heard this one way or the other, but was that a generation issue?
Yes, I would say that overall it was a generation issue. It was, so as I think about the events of December 23rd, I guess through the 26th. December 23rd, you might recall, was when we had significant wind. We had a number of outages as a result of that. That was the Friday before the holiday weekend. As we prepared to go into that evening, we looked at our load forecast, the supply that we had on our system, the purchase power contracts that we had available to us, and we felt like we had enough supply to meet the demand of our customers on the system. I'm not an engineer, but I know that the supply and demand at any time is always equal to each other on our system. And we felt like we had enough supply and enough reserve to get through the night. And a confluence of events over the course of that evening showed, number one, that our forecast was off. It was off somewhere on the order of 5 to 10%. It was colder than expected. The winds, I mean, I think the actual temperature was as cold as we've seen since something like the 1980s. And the tool that we use is a regression model that learns from recent history. So that was off in terms of what we expected. The actual load that came in from customers ended up being higher than we expected. The cold temperatures had an impact on some of our generation and some D rates, so not operating at full capacity, still operating, that we continue to work through the night. And then something that I haven't seen in my career is these purchase power contracts, including, when I say purchase power, for firm delivery, did not show up because this was an event that really was impacting the entire East Coast. And so the confluence of those events meant that there was effectively more demand on our system than the supply available. And at that point, rotating outages really was the last resort for us.
Understand. Again, not trying to be critical or anything. I was really surprised too. One, I'm not on DEP, I'm on DEC. But the rolling blackouts affected, I guess, certain areas where my daughter was, so I ended up having everybody come to my doggone house, my house, excuse me, I shouldn't say it that way. But to be honest, as I thought about it, because I didn't know about it until maybe the next day after, I can't recall. I just, thought something happened. I know when extreme temperatures, all of our breaks were going to come, at least from the water side, at the worst possible time. When it's the coldest, when nobody wants to go out, when the energy demand's highest, whatever. And bank on it. We counted on it. But I know it seems like, at least I knew this, and I'm pretty sure everybody knew this, that, a week before they'd been talking about this really cold condition that's coming. It already hit, south, southwest, and it's going to have winds, going to have these very low temperatures and this kind of thing. And I know from other hearings, you guys have talked about the contract services you have with weather forecasters, and you have stuff internally. So again, not trying to be critical, but I'm surprised that this caught anyone off guard. The effects of it. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense, and we certainly, to your point, we forecasted a week out. We knew it was going to be cold. We did a lot of walk downs of our facilities. We've done a lot of weatherization. We certainly learned from Winter Storm Uri in Texas. We'll continue to do the same from this. I think there's an opportunity for additional lessons learned. But really, when I've talked to some of our operators, it was within a 90-minute type of span that really they saw that demand start to go up at a rate faster than anybody expected. And at that point, we also weren't able to rely on that purchase power that we normally would be able to. So, it was in the overnight hours. What I regret particularly is at that point in time, how we were able to communicate with our customers. And that's something that we're going to learn from and do better. Again, if an event like this happens again, how can we communicate around, for example, conservation? I'm thankful that our customers, when we used mass communication channels early that morning, and our customers conserved, which really helped in the overall process.
And Duke considers things like, for example, this storm, it's not like it just hovered over South Carolina. This storm, we knew it was going to be big, so it's going to be kind of a whole area, but they considered that, and that, if it's really, really cold here, it's probably going to be really, really cold from the folks we might want to buy power from. All that was considered too, right?
Absolutely. And again, this is not something that we've typically seen. And in terms of implementing rotating load outages, it was the first time in our history that we've had to do that in the Carolinas.
Well, see, you're a young man. When you lived as old as we have, you remember a lot of stuff. But, and finally, to what extent, if any, would you say that the rolling blackouts were due to insufficient, dispatchable generation?
I'm not an operating expert. I don't know the answer exactly to that question. I think that's part of what we're dissecting and understanding more about. And I know that the commission last week at your business meeting approved the ORS's review of this. We have a lot of data and a lot of information. We have an internal team really rolling up their sleeves and understanding what happened, what can we learn from this, how can we be better around this in the future.
Understand. Thank you. And this is just out of curiosity. You mentioned, I think, to Commissioner Carol Lee Williams, you have an ongoing rate case in North Carolina. Can you share what the total revenue is you're requesting there, or the additional revenue, or the total? Well, additional revenue and total revenue. While I'm asking, just
I actually do not know the answer to that question, but I'm sure we can get that for you.
I appreciate it.
I've been very focused on this rate case and trying to work this settlement.
I understand. I'm just being nosy. I mean, what else
We
can
can
I
get
say?
that for you.
And the notice in the application, I noticed used 1,225 kilowatt hours. The application uses 1,000 kilowatt hours. And first of all, I tend to learn by doing. So for a lot of this time, I've been going through numbers, trying to understand how you do a bill, how you figure your bill. Multiple iterations. And when I kind of think I got it, then all the numbers changed. Or either I thought I understood this and didn't. So I suspect a lot of the questions I have or would like somebody to help me go through that would probably be with Ms. Elliott and
Ms.
Ms.
Reed
Reed.
as well. That's correct.
But relative to the notice, 1,225 kilowatts and 1,000, do you know why that's different, or is what's the distinction?
Do you know, Larry? I don't know which page you're referring to. I know that my understanding of the 1,000 kilowatt hours, why we often use that is it is a metric that they use across the industry. So when you're trying to compare bills for customers across multiple service territories, having that commonality allows you to do that. But if there's a discrepancy between the 1,225 and the 1,000, I'm not quite sure what that is. But
So-
Witness Elliott can probably help you with that.
Okay, that's all I really wanted to know. And I understand the 1,000 because if they use 1,225, then it's 1.225 times that. I mean, that wasn't meant to be critical. I just thought there's something I don't understand. Okay. Do you know what the typical average residential kilowatt hour use is?
Not off the top of my head, I don't. We can get that for you. I don't know it off the top of my head.
And see, I had to pick one of those numbers when I was trying to do my bill, so. Not many more.
Commissioner Cass,
Yes.
maybe I can help out based off the dialogue. Mr. Callahan, 1,000 kilowatt hour, correct. The 1,225 average, it's truly the average of all the residential customers. So that is, I think, the answer to your question around what the average is 1,225. So it's same mathematics, just different element of usage that's compared.
I understand, and I wondered if that's what it was in the notice, and I thought, well, it makes sense, but, you know. Again, that was just for my edification. Actually, all this is. I feel like I owe it to this commission, the companies, the interveners, the customers, everybody, to understand this stuff as best I can, to be as good as I can be. And that's a struggle for somebody like me because, I'm kind of limited too, brain power and everything else, but I'm trying. And as I say, I learn by doing. So when I think about the bills, for example, I told you I was a DEC customer. And I got to be honest, I was like Commissioner Justin Williams. Man, I used to just look at how much I owed and when it was due. And hopefully I'd remember that and pay it on time. Thank God for bill pay. But until some time back when I started, kind of looking more, I felt like I probably ought to understand my bill a little bit more with my new role and such. And I started looking through it. I had to go to the website actually to find some of it because, it's like 2 pages and you got like 1 3/4 page. This is my DEC bill. I don't have a clue what a DEP bill looks like. I may have had one. I don't know. I just don't recall. But I couldn't find really anywhere on that bill that kind of explained to me what really things really were or what was in that thing. Now, it did tell me I've got I think a 72-cent Leaf 50C. And I understand the municipal fee. I assume that's the franchise fee or whatever, at least for me living in Clemson. But when I looked at it and had to go online to try to figure some of this stuff out, I saw where DEC has an inclining block rate. I think the first 1,000 kilowatt hours is at whatever my unit cost is for energy, and 1,001 up is a greater number on my DEC bill, which, from a utility point of view, even a water point of view, if you're thinking in terms of conservation, that's probably makes sense. When I looked at the DEP application and went through all that, I was, not saying it's right or wrong, I was surprised to find out that it's a declining block rate structure. Your first 800 kilowatt hours is at, I don't know what it is now. I had it memorized. It was 0.13, whatever it was, 898, and now it's been reduced. And then 801 and up was a lesser number. Is that correct?
I don't know offhand. I know Witness Elliott certainly can walk you through that, but you are correct. I mean, different rate schedules, and it goes back to this notion that these utilities have been regulated independent of each other for really since their inception. So we don't have the same rate structures necessarily within each utility. Over time, we always look for opportunities to harmonize things to the extent we can, but at the end of the day, the revenue requirement is set independently for each utility, and the rate design is as well.
Well, I'll just probably wrap up my questioning now then and just wait for Ms. reading those, because as I went through some of these examples and I'm a numbers guy, and I try to understand them. And when I look at this, think about the numbers, I don't want to, it's certainly not my role to tell anybody how to do anything. At my previous role at our utility, on our bill, we actually had we broke down all the items that were in our, whatever that bill was. The municipal systems that had wastewater systems would use the water meter readings for their bill, so their sewer charge would be on our bill. Municipal fee, there was one. Different things like that. I can tell you honestly, as a customer, I would find it very useful to have those things itemized with explaining. For example, is in my energy charge, you don't have to answer this. I'll ask Ms. Reed this. I thought I had determined, I wasn't sure. Did my DSM EE factor go into that energy charge, or it appeared to be separate, and then I had to do it here and then do it here, and then the fuel factor was different. Was that in the energy charge? I think it was, and I wasn't sure it was. I think it would be very helpful to show on my bill, this just me, DERP charge, $1, that's by statute. EEDSM, this is the cost per kilowatt, and this is how much separate that is in that bill. That's how much it adds to the bill. Fuel factor, this is how much it is, this is how much it adds to the bill. And this is municipal charge, this is your total bill, and this is how it got here. That's just me. Whether you want to call it transparency, whatever. I just want to understand things. And
well, perhaps there's additional opportunities for improvement here. I do believe with Customer Connect, we did change what's on the bill, just the look and feel, and so on, but maybe there's additional information that would be useful to customers.
Well, I'm still getting a paper bill, and maybe I need to quit that, but I'm telling you, I got 1 3/4 pages here. I believe you got plenty of room to add something like that, I really do, but.
No, feedback's well taken. You know, there's requirements of what we've got to have on the bill. We make sure we meet those requirements, but your feedback's well taken. We'll take that back and see if there's additional clarity that we can add.
Well, I may be the weak link in this chain, so I'll admit that now, so. I appreciate you guys' patience, and I look forward to talking to the others. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, further questions?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Justin Williams?
I forgot to ask one question, gentlemen. When you're considering your rate case and making your proposal, and we talk about the industry standard or average of 1,000 kilowatt hours, and I think in the service territory it's like 1225. Is there any level of thought given to your customers who may live in homes that are not weatherized as to what their kilowatt usage is and how your request will impact them? Like, for example, and the math may be off, which is why I'm asking the question. My math may be off. So if the average usage is 1225 and I use 3 times that because I live in a home that's not properly insulated or whatever the case may be, is it fair to say that the impact of the rate increase will be 3 times the average?
I think that's the correct math, yes.
Okay. And so what level of consideration do you all give to customers that are in that situation, considering that they're going to pay 3 times as much for warmth in the winter and other, however they use their energy, than someone who lives in a properly insulated home?
Yeah, we think about, before we file a rate case, first and foremost, we fully acknowledge it's never a good time for a rate increase. And so you start from that premise around, are there things that you can do to delay rate cases? We certainly, during COVID, recognized the hardship that placed on a lot of our customers. Things like deferrals around the Asheville CC plant, the coal plant, grid improvement plan, et cetera, helped us stay out. But once you make a decision, and there's a point at which, the longer you wait, because we're investing every day, the rate increase just continues to get bigger. And so there's a point at which there's a sort of an efficiency around, if we're going to go in, let's try to mitigate it in every way that we can. And then with respect to the individual customer classes, individual customers, trying to spread the rate increase in a way that's fair and equitable to all the different customer classes. And then with respect to individual customers, like you mentioned, if a customer uses 3 times the usage, that's where I would say that the programs that we have, I think, are critical to help them reduce their energy usage. I don't know why someone would necessarily be using 3 times more than another home, but there's got to be a driver for that. Help them understand that. Are there things that we can do through our programs, whether it's the LED lights or increased weather stripping, et cetera, all those things to help drive down that individual homeowner's energy usage.
And I think that's the key. Is what we're doing is we're continuing to emphasize the programs we have that can help these customers with home energy assessments and audits. Go in and look at their windows, their weather stripping, all the things that they're losing energy from that's creating that higher usage, and continuing to work with them to do that, as well as focus on how do you get more support to these customers from federal and state agencies to be able to help them with their bills. We've been spending a lot of time in that space. I do think this conversation, as I shared with you earlier, has got to continue to expand around what we do as a company, what we can do as a legislative body to be able to continue to support low income customers. And so it's going to continue to be a challenge that we got to work through. We're spending a lot of effort on our end, at least when customers call in, making sure that we're tracking the messages that our specialists are sharing with customers around making sure they're getting information on the opportunities that they have to get these energy assessments, to get these products in their homes to help them reduce their energy usage. I mean, that's a specific thing that we look at on every call to make sure that those offerings are being given to our customers.
Thank you, sir. I think I heard you say that you have about 11 to 12,000 customers that are on the
budget billing.
The budget billing. Okay. Are they required to have an energy audit? Are you tracking? That's a bad question. Let me take that.
Not to get on that plan, no, sir.
Okay. Is there any framework or any ability to track what you may consider high energy users? Like, for example, if the average is 1225, is the company tracking, a home that may use 3 to 4 or 5 times as much?
Not to my knowledge, where we track individual homes and say these homes are using a lot more energy than others. And there's reasons probably for that too, right? It depends on home size. It depends on how many people are in the home. It depends on, is it an older home, a newer home, those kind of things. So I don't know that we could deduce any finite outcomes of seeing that anyway.
Okay, thank you, sir. And let me just offer to you, it seems like, as the president said, opportunities for improvement. It seems like, based on my time here, the short time here, according to Commissioner Williams, they're still newbies. I don't consider myself that long in the tooth, but we've seen several rate cases, and that issue, as you talked about, the issue of poverty and high energy usage in small homes that are not properly insulated, seems to be a constant issue. And I'm hopeful that there's something out there that could really address those issues. And hopefully you all can keep us informed with the progress of your programs and what you're doing to proactively address that known issue in your service territory. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, further questions?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Urban?
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for reaching a compromise agreement reducing the increase of the original request. I'd like to ask you, if you would, to try and explain in layman's terms that we can all understand, what is an EDIT rider and how does it help customers for you to agree voluntarily to refund what effectively was a corporate tax rate reduction to customers? Can you explain that to us?
I can do it at a high level, Commissioner Irvin. To your point, the excess deferred taxes that are a liability to Duke Energy, it's customers' money. It was taxes that we booked over time at a higher tax rate that was reduced in the 2017-2018 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And in the 2018 rate case, this commission authorized for the class of excess deferred income taxes we're talking about here, the flow back to customers of that overcollection, if you will, over a 20-year period. And what we proposed in this particular case was, rather than continuing on that path of effectively amortizing that to customers over 20 years, we proposed 26 months. And ultimately, if approved by the commission, the settlement agreement would have that flow back to customers over 33 months.
So the practical impact on a customer's bill is you're going to be reducing customer bills by giving them the money back sooner. Is fair to say?
That's correct.
And so that's going to help reduce ratepayer bills as part of the settlement agreement.
Yes, it will.
And it'll substantially reduce it, won't it? Because how much money is involved in that particular part of the deal?
I don't recall the exact number. When you look at, I guess it's about from the 52 million, it's $16 million over 33 months, which reduces the overall ask to 35 million. So I guess that's the answer. It's about $16 million.
A lot of money to spread around to customers to lower the impact on their bills, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Good. And so you didn't have to do that. That was something that the company came to the table and gave up to try to lessen the impact on ratepayers.
Yes, that's correct. In our initial proposal, we felt like this was an opportunity to recognize the challenges that our customers are facing, the size of the overall rate increase that we were requesting, and through the acceleration to help offset that for the next 2 to 3 years.
And I want to thank you for agreeing to do that. You weren't legally required to, but I think it will help customers particularly during this time where we're seeing cost of everything go up. Inflation has had a dramatic impact, particularly on those seniors who are on fixed incomes, and maybe their only source of income is a Social Security check, and that's it. And so they have, as you've heard at our public hearings, they're under tremendous financial strain during this time. And so anything we can do to reduce their bills is welcome news. So I want to thank you all for agreeing to that. The other thing I think that I like about this compromise settlement is your willingness to expand and extend programs for low-income weatherization. Could you tell us about how you're going to expand that program and over what period of time, if you know?
Yes, this is where I would say that the details really do need to be worked out. This is going to be a discussion within the EE-DSM collaborative that has, a number of stakeholders represented, and we'll work through, again, what some of the proposals are that might make sense for customers and make sense for the parties, and certainly what makes sense for the state. And if we can arrive at some consensus around that, would put forth some proposals for the commission to consider.
Very good. And so we'll leave that for the details of that for later. But again, I think it was a virtual hearing we had where a lady who's active in the community explained how it had a very positive impact for her neighbors by getting these energy audits performed and getting additional weather stripping and insulation installed. And I want to commend the company for expanding those efforts because, again, that directly helps those who are on fixed incomes and are struggling to pay their bills. Speaking of bills, Commissioner Caston had some interesting thoughts about what actually appears on the paper bill. I'm wondering, do you think it might be helpful just to have a graph from month to month as to whether a customer's usage has increased or decreased or stayed the same? Do you think you could kind of just display that on the bill and that would give them some better understanding about how they can monitor their cost?
Yeah, so some customers see that now depending on the payment plan they're on. So, for example, if you're on budget billing, you can see your usage and see what your accumulated balance is compared to what you're actually paying is one example. If I'm not mistaken, I also believe that information is on the mobile app. You can go in and look at your energy usage and be able to track that over time and see what you're using. I don't believe that it's on every customer bill, so that's again additional feedback that we could take back for consideration.
Right, because we still got hundreds of thousands of people in South Carolina that don't have broadband access, unfortunately.
Understand.
So they may not be able to access that, but hopefully, over time that will improve. But it might be helpful to put it on all customer bills. So I'd encourage you to look at that, particularly as it relates to Duke Energy Progress.
Understand.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is we talked a little bit about, I believe Commissioner Caston asked you about, and as did Commissioner Carolee Williams, asked you about the storm under the Christmas storm Elliott. And I know we're going to have a later hearing on that, so I won't belabor the point, but did you learn any lessons from that event that might reduce the possibility or probability of this happening or occurring again?
Yes, certainly. I would say as early as the day after the event, we had some learnings. For example, I mentioned the fact that our load forecasting tool had under forecasted where our demand was going to be because of those extreme temperatures. And that model learned from that experience. We increased the margin in the model to ensure as we planned ahead for the next day where we thought load would be, that we could ensure that we had the supply necessary. Fortunately, by that time, there was purchase power available as well. So, right out of the gate, we learned that. I mentioned that we're working through how we're going to communicate with customers here if something like this was to happen again. So I do think there will continue to be a number of lessons learned that we'll share certainly with ORS in their review, share with this commission. But in the days ahead, I do think that there will be opportunities here.
Thank you for that. And, reliability is always something that we've been concerned about ever since I've been on the commission. It's always, top of mind. And what concerned me the most really was the fact that some of the gas and coal-fired generating units apparently froze up as well. The switching mechanisms froze and they weren't performing during this outage. Is that true?
I don't know the specifics by each plant, but I do know, as I mentioned, there were some derates on some of those facilities, is what I think you're referring to, where
right.
Due to the weather, instrumentation and so on, there were some challenges. And a lot of that, we had increased our weatherization and insulation, again, going back to some of the learnings from Winter Storm Uri, and we'll have to continue to evaluate whether there's future opportunities with respect to that.
And that would include on-site inspections to see if additional winterization around those switches and components would help, I hope.
Yes, I'd imagine that'd be the case.
Right. And the other encouraging news was that solar apparently performed as expected during the outage. So you didn't lose any generation from solar units, as I understand it.
Yes, that's correct. We did not lose any generation. Solar, I would say, operated as intended, which is, I think, what you said. Solar was not available on the system at, 4 a.m. when we started to see the divergence of our forecast. Ultimately, when we had to implement the rolling outages, which was about 6:30 a.m., there still was not solar on the system. But immediately thereafter, you may recall that day, it was a perfectly blue sky, clear day, and there was a lot of solar that ramped up on the system, which proved very beneficial from our system standpoint, because I know this commission is aware of the Bad Creek pumped storage hydro facility that we have in Duke Energy Carolinas, which serves as a battery effectively. That solar we were able to use during the day to increase the capacity of that to be used in the next day. So solar did operate as intended, but it was not operating at the time that we hit the peak.
Right. And that brings me to my next point. And under the federal legislation that was passed, referred to as IRA, what does that stand for again? I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Inflation Reduction Act.
Right. There's some federal tax credits that will be available to Duke Energy Progress and Duke Energy Carolinas that the company can take advantage of in terms of building out solar and storage. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. There are a number of tax incentives around solar storage, as you mentioned, and earlier I'd mentioned nuclear as well. There's nuclear
Right.
PTCs, which will prove beneficial.
Right. And we hope that you'll take advantage of all those opportunities. Of course, Bad Creek nuclear facility up in Oconee, Pickens area has served our state well. And while it's not in the DEP area, it's part of the overall generating capacity. And we hope that you're going to apply to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for relicense her to extend the useful life of that plant. The Bad Creek's been a great addition to the mix. And so we appreciate all those efforts, but as the cost of storage and solar comes down, we hope that you'll take full advantage of those investment tax credits, because those will benefit ratepayers as well. Isn't that true?
Yes, that's absolutely true. As we think about our energy transition and the increasing amount of renewables on the system, the Inflation Reduction Act will be beneficial to customers.
Because every dollar you get from the federal monies that are available through investment tax credits, that's a dollar the ratepayer doesn't have to pay to build a new facility somewhere.
That's correct.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Madam Chair, those are all the questions I have.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Irwin. Commissioner Thomas?
Thank you. I just had one follow-up question based on a comment by our question from Commissioner Irwin. And you were talking about the time horizon for the weather modeling forecast, and I think you said 30 years is what it's been based on. And I wonder if that's the appropriate time. Should that period be longer than 30 years? And would that information be available? Is that something that you all can look at or think about in connection with the lessons learned from the experience?
Yes, and with respect to your question, I don't recall the 30 years. But when we were talking about, you're talking about around Winter Storm Elliott and the forecasting that we do?
Yes, you mentioned a modeling program that things didn't end up, going according to what you were expecting. Yes. Based on that program. I'm not exactly sure which program it is.
Got
but
you. Yes, that's a model that we continually evaluate. As I mentioned, it's a regression-based model which improves with every event that occurs. I think what maybe I had referred to over that long time period was we hadn't seen weather this cold since somewhere around the 80s. So I think it's 40 to 50 years. Had not seen an event like this in our service territory. But yes, that model, we continue to tweak it. And I should say, this was something that a lot of other utilities saw a similar impact. For example, I believe PJM last week had an update on their experience from Winter Storm Elliott. A lot of their forecasts, I think, was off by about 10%. I know other utilities in the Southeast had a similar experience, but we'll continue to tweak that as we move ahead.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Gentlemen, just a couple of questions. Most of my questions have been covered. I recall some testimony from the night hearings about complaints about vegetation management, and especially in some areas that kind of out in the country. I don't think they were in the municipal, within city limits of some of these places. Can you tell me how those have been handled?
Sure. So I'll just kind of walk you down the list if that's okay.
That's fine.
Mrs. Gardner, she had testified that she had some concerns related to her foliage blocking her area light. We went out and looked at her property. She did have some vegetation outside of our right-of-way that was impacting the line that runs to her house. We went ahead and removed that, and we removed the foliage around her lights to clear that out of the way. And the Manning feeder line that actually is the feeder to her home is scheduled to be trimmed in 2023. So it is on its current schedule. Mr. Pusser, he also had some concerns over his vegetation. We spot trimmed some of the areas at his home. He also had some dead trees that needed to be removed. So we removed a dead pine, a sweet gum tree, and we also had some vines on one of the poles that was interconnected to his home that we removed. These trees were outside of our right-of-way, and so we did those as courtesy removals.
Well, okay, they're outside of your right-of-way. I mean, that's like somebody coming in and complaining, and then you going out there and doing work they ought to be paying a tree trimmer for. How's that going to impact other customers?
So just to clarify, we did these as courtesies. They're not we charged to any other customer. We're doing this as a courtesy to this customer to help them reduce
It's setting a dangerous precedent, isn't it?
You have to be careful, yes, ma'am.
I don't know if y'all read about some electric cooperative executives that were getting some free work around South Carolina for vegetation management, maintenance and stuff too. Just
understood.
Y'all need to be careful. Other ratepayers don't want to be paying for expenses that are not necessary for the utility.
Understood.
It's a fine line here, gentlemen.
Understood.
Okay.
Completely. Mr. Caesar, he also had some concerns about his vegetation. He's on a 140-mile feeder line that goes into his property.
140 foot.
40 mile.
Mile.
So he's on a long feeder line that travels to where his home is way back in the country. There were some limbs.
I'm sorry, 140 mile?
Yes, ma'am. So his primary,
Does that mean the line is 140 miles long?
his distribution line going all the way out to his property. But there's other properties along the way. He's just
Okay.
on the 140-mile distribution line.
Okay.
So that one's also, we did spot trimming along that distribution line to make sure that his service, should no longer be impacted by limbs falling, that kind of thing. Mrs. Miles also, she had some concerns. She requested an area light be installed near her driveway and also had some veg concerns. We had engineering and veg reps that went on site to review her concerns, and we're working to see if we can figure out a way to locate her a light near to where she wants to that doesn't impact any other structures on her property. So the point there is all the concerns that were raised, we've either visited the premise and performed work to mitigate any vegetation concerns, or we've gone back and looked at the trim schedules for these feeder lines that go into these areas to make sure that they're on track.
Tell me about the trim schedule. Is there a 3-year, 5-year? What's the schedule?
I would have to defer probably to Mr. Malley for the detailed schedule.
Okay.
There are different schedules for our veg management program.
Is it more often in a municipal area than out to some of these customers that are outside of town limits?
I don't believe so, but again, I'd have to defer.
Okay. Mr. Callahan?
I was just going to add that, as part of the settlement agreement framework, there is enhanced reporting on a quarterly basis where ORS and the commission will be reporting the line miles we've maintained, sprayed. We'll file an annual plan, so you'll have absolute transparency into what that looks like. But I do believe there's rotating schedules. within
There
the
are.
plan.
I just don't know what the schedule is. Do y'all have people that ride through the service territory to look? I mean, it's one thing to have a schedule, but some things grow faster than others, or
We do.
there are changes.
Anytime our transmission or customer delivery employees or we are riding around, and we pay attention to that, and if we see something, we can call in and have work orders generated, that type of thing.
Okay, believe me, since I've been working here and some of the cases we've had, I'm looking at lines and poles all over the place. I also used to look at the stickers on trucks as they rode by or I rode by them. So, some of I wasn't sure from some of the testimony at the night hearing whether folks were talking about outages with severe storms, which I understand, but it seemed that some of them were kind of indicating that when it rains, they have some issues, even if it's not a severe storm. Have y'all come across that and checked into some of those?
So it depends again. So if you have a severe thunderstorm and you may have a dead tree outside the right of way.
I'm not talking about something falling.
just limbs, that type of thing.
Well, they just seem to indicate that it rains, the lights go out.
Yep. To my knowledge, we didn't find any
Okay.
systemic issues like
Anything would have been like further up the line where somebody may not have known about it. Something might have fallen on the line or knocked the line down or something like
It
that.
could be a squirrel, it could be snake, all kinds of things of that nature.
Oh, yeah. With regard to budget billing, when this switched, my recollection is that everybody was on an annual plan. Y'all came in and asked for approval of a quarterly, also an annual plan. But everybody that was on the annual plan was switched to the quarterly plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Given all that we've heard, do you think adequate communication of what the changes were going to be was made to the customers?
Yeah, that's what I was sharing earlier. That is a lesson learned out of the feedback we've gotten. We provided a lot of written communication to customers on the quarterly plan, how it works, their option to go back to an annual plan if they chose to with the annual true up. We think there's there's more opportunity to communicate with our customer. We may do some videos or other things to walk customers through that.
And to go back to the annual plan from the current quarterly, they have to zero out that balance before they can go on the annual. Is that not going to be prohibited for some? Don't they have to catch it up?
Yes, ma'am. On the accumulated balance.
Mm-hmm.
So there's options for that too, though. We can work with customers to look at IPPs, individual payment plans, and things like that if they're truly wanting to go back to an annual plan. We also try to make sure they understand, though, what an annual plan looks like, because as I shared, we have received quite a few customer concerns, too, about that annual true-up.
Okay. I think most of my other questions have been answered, except, Mr. Callahan, I'm just curious, where in Atlanta did y'all hold a pop-up event?
I can't answer that question. I was not at the Atlanta Power Hours.
Just a little curious about that.
Probably the library. Most of those Power Hours have been at local libraries.
I'd be curious if Atlanta has a library, but that's another thing. Gentlemen, commissioners, any further questions? Mr. Robinson, is there any if you have questions, I just need to know whether to let these guys step down. We'll handle them after lunch, or do you have redirect?
Chair Belzer, I do have brief redirect. I think no more than 10 minutes.
We're going to break. Gentlemen, we'll see you back at, let's come back at 2:30. 2:30. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
And once again, under oath.